Egyptian gods. For centuries, their gazes have watched over us from tombs and temples, silent witnesses to the rise and fall of civilizations. But what if their eyes could reveal more than just stories of long ago? Welcome to the secrets of the eye that shocked archaeologists. We've heard tales of ancient curses and prophecies, but none may be as intriguing as the legend of the Eye of Ra. Hidden within the Great Pyramid, some say it holds the key to predicting our future. The stakes are high. According to legend, whoever beholds the Eye of Ra is granted the gift of foresight, the ability to peer into the very fabric of destiny. But beware, for the eye's power comes with a price. Those who seek it must navigate treacherous chambers and face trials designed to test their worthiness. Will you dare step into the shadow of the gods and risk the consequences of unlocking such forbidden knowledge? Let's dive into the legacy of the Eye of Ra, where history meets mystery and the future beckons in the shadows of the past. In 1872, British engineer Wayne Dixon uncovered a secret passage leading to a mysterious chamber within the heart of the Great Pyramid. But upon entering, he stumbled upon a sight that shook him to his core. A gigantic granite sarcophagus adorned with hieroglyphics depicting the Eye of Ra. The Eye of Ra is often symbolized as a stylized eye design featuring two teardrops extending outwards. And this discovery pointed to an even greater revelation. Legend speaks of a hidden chamber behind the Great Sphinx where an ancient prophecy awaits, a prophecy tied to the Eye of Ra. Our journey takes us back to 1925, when a British Egyptologist named Edward R. Ayrton conducted a series of experiments within the Great Pyramid. Using specialized equipment, he measured minute variations in temperature and pressure, believing they held the key to unlocking the pyramid's secrets. A year later, a team of explorers ventured into the belly of the earth, descending into the depths of the Great Sphinx. There they discovered a subterranean labyrinth, hinting at a connection between the Sphinx and the pyramids. The existence of these tunnels seems to lend credence to the idea that they were once linked, possibly serving as pathways for rituals or symbolic journeys. Some believe the Eye of Ra might lie at the center of this underground network. But let's rewind to 1881, when Flinders Petrie embarked on a mission to uncover the truth. He located a small chamber adjacent to the Queen's chamber. Within it, he found traces of red paint and a curious indentation resembling an eye socket. Could this be the physical manifestation of the Eye of Ra, a tangible link to the enigmatic Third Pyramid? Adding to the enigma, a nearby inscription reads, "Where Ra gives light." The convergence of astronomical alignments, secret chambers, and cryptic inscriptions suggests a deliberate effort to conceal the Eye of Ra's location from prying eyes. The hunt for the Eye of Ra reached new heights in 1968, when renowned Egyptologist Dr. Mark Laynard joined the quest. Using advanced technology, he explored previously inaccessible areas, discovering a horizontal shaft concealed behind masonry. At its end, he found a square hole, perfectly round, which he believed could be the final resting place of the Eye of Ra. However, attempts to lower instruments through the opening proved unsuccessful due to its precarious condition. In 1972, the race to find the eye reached a fever pitch when British architect and researcher John R. Cooper initiated excavations near the top of the Great Pyramid. Armed with theories based on the shape and acoustics of the structure, he and his team unearthed a massive void directly beneath the center of the pyramid's peak. Some believe this void could lead to a subterranean chamber where the Eye of Ra is ensconced. And while the eye remains elusive, Cooper's discovery of this vast cavity suggests there may be much more to the pyramid-esque design than meets the eye. These tales of adventure and discovery have captured the public's imagination, leaving us on the brink of a major breakthrough. The question is, are we ready to uncover the truth behind the Eye of Ra? Let's delve into the real-life hunt for this legendary relic. Unveiling the secrets of the Eye of Ra isn't just a quest for lost artifacts. It's a testament to the enduring allure of ancient mysteries. Each new discovery, no matter how elusive, brings us closer to understanding the beliefs and practices of a civilization that shaped our world. As we continue to explore the depths of ancient Egypt, we find ourselves at the precipice of a remarkable revelation. The Eye of Ra, once a mere myth, is now within our grasp. Join us on this extraordinary journey as we unveil the astonishing truth behind this mystical artifact and the legacy it holds. The Eye of Ra, a symbol of protection and healing, played a pivotal role in the lives of the ancient Egyptians. Its presence was deeply ingrained in their culture, adorning everything from temple walls to everyday objects. But have you ever wondered what sets the Eye of Ra apart from other symbols of power and divinity? The answer lies in its profound connection to the sun god Ra, whose life-giving rays were revered as the source of all existence. The Eye of Ra represented Ra's benevolent gaze, offering its bearers the promise of guidance and strength. It was a talisman against evil forces, a beacon of hope in times of darkness. But the significance of the Eye of Ra extends far beyond mere symbolism. Some say it holds the key to harnessing solar energy, a power that can heal the sick and rejuvenate the weary. It was believed that the Eye of Ra possessed miraculous healing properties, capable of restoring sight to the blind and banishing disease from the afflicted. Its touch was said to bring life back into barren lands, transforming deserts into fertile fields. The power of the Eye of Ra knew no bounds. However, the Eye of Ra wasn't just a symbol of power and healing. It also represented wisdom and enlightenment. To behold the Eye of Ra was said to be a transformative experience, a glimpse into the divine order of the universe. It bestowed those who gazed upon it with profound knowledge and understanding, unraveling the mysteries of life and death. The Eye of Ra illuminated the path to immortality, guiding souls through the treacherous underworld and into the blissful realm of the afterlife. Now, let's turn our attention to the captivating tale of Catherine, a woman whose life was forever changed by the Eye of Ra. Catherine had always felt a deep connection to ancient Egypt. Drawn to its timeless mysteries and rich cultural heritage, little did she know that fate had a remarkable surprise in store for her. During a trip to the British Museum, she stumbled upon a hidden exhibit, a collection of artifacts from the era of Akhenaten and Nefertiti. Among them was a small wooden box, adorned with the symbol of the Eye of Ra. Intrigued, Catherine reached out to touch it. In that instant, she felt a surge of energy course through her body, awakening a dormant power within her own eyes. Suddenly, Catherine began to see the world in a different light. She could perceive the energy flowing through all living things, connecting them in an intricate web of life. With newfound clarity, she realized that the Eye of Ra had chosen her, bestowing upon her the gift of seeing beyond the physical realm. Guided by the wisdom of the ancients, Catherine embarked on a journey of self-discovery, learning to harness the powers of the Eye of Ra. She became known as the woman who sees, using her abilities to heal the sick, protect the innocent, and unlock the secrets of the universe. Catherine's story is a testament to the enduring legacy of the Eye of Ra, a symbol that continues to captivate and inspire wonder in those who encounter it. Whether in dreams, visions, or moments of spiritual awakening, the Eye of Ra reminds us that the pursuit of knowledge and connection with the divine can lead us to extraordinary discoveries. Embracing the mysteries of life with an open heart and mind can unlock hidden potential and illuminate our path towards enlightenment. Let's turn our attention to a tale that blurs the line between myth and reality. The legend of the hidden chamber and the Eye of Ra. Deep within the enigmatic chambers of the Great Pyramid, shrouded in secrecy and steeped in mystery, there exists a chamber concealed from the prying eyes of the world. It is a place where ancient secrets lie dormant, waiting to be unearthed. According to legend, this hidden chamber holds the key to understanding the true essence of the Eye of Ra, a relic of immense power and significance. It is said that the entrance to this chamber is cleverly disguised, seamlessly blending with the surrounding walls, its presence known only to a few. Initiates brave enough to venture forth embark on a perilous journey fraught with danger and deception. The air grows thick with anticipation as they navigate treacherous passages, deciphering cryptic clues and overcoming seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Along their path, they encounter cryptic hieroglyphics that whisper tales of long ago. Offering glimpses into the rituals and beliefs of a bygone era, finally, they stand before the threshold of the hidden chamber, their hearts pounding with a mixture of fear and excitement. With bated breath, they push open the doors and step into a realm untouched by modern eyes for centuries. Before them lies a sanctuary bathed in an ethereal glow, the very air humming with ancient energy. In the center, resting on a pedestal, is the Eye of Ra, radiating an otherworldly luminescence. Its depths seem to hold the secrets of the cosmos, promising untold wisdom and enlightenment to those who dare to gaze upon it. As they approach the Eye of Ra, Its power envelops them, revealing hidden truths and igniting their souls with newfound understanding. The seekers realize that they are in the presence of something truly sacred, a conduit to the divine, a portal to realms beyond their wildest imaginings. But alas, time has taken its toll on this hidden chamber. Centuries of neglect have caused it to crumble, its once vibrant colors faded, its grandeur obscured by the dust of ages. Yet even in its state of disarray, the chamber exudes an aura of mystery and intrigue, beckoning explorers to uncover its secrets. For within these crumbling walls lie not just the relics of the past, but also the potential to rewrite history, to shatter long-held beliefs, and to glimpse the hidden patterns that connect us all. The discovery of this hidden chamber in the Eye of Ra would send shockwaves throughout the world, challenging conventional wisdom and redefining our understanding of ancient Egypt. It would ignite a firestorm of debate among scholars and enthusiasts alike, each seeking to unravel the deeper meaning and implications of such a profound find. As we reach the end of this captivating journey, we invite you to join the conversation. Have you ever experienced the enigmatic allure of the Eye of Ra? Share your thoughts, dreams, and visions in the comments below. Your stories may hold valuable insights, or even shed light on the location of the hidden chamber. If you're captivated by the mysteries of ancient Egypt and yearn to uncover more secrets, we encourage you to subscribe. Together, we can explore the depths of history and marvel at the wonders that await us. Don't forget to tap the bell icon to receive notifications of our latest adventures. As the twilight hours embrace us, we bid you farewell until next time. May your journey through life be filled with curiosity, wonder, and the relentless pursuit of knowledge. Till then, keep your eyes open for the signs of the Eye of Ra, for it may be closer than you think. There's been an ongoing debate for centuries. Are the supposed curses of the pharaohs real, or just clever propaganda? While some dismiss them as mere mythology, others argue they hold a grain of truth. But what if the answer lies somewhere in between? What if science holds the key to unlocking the secrets behind these ancient curses? In today's video, we'll be exploring fascinating new evidence that sheds light on these long-standing beliefs. Join me on this journey as we uncover the surprising ways our modern world might be linked to the pharaohs' ominous warnings. If you like this video, please support us by subscribing and supporting us. Thank you very much. The Curse of the Pharaohs, a tale as old as time, or at least as old as ancient Egypt. For centuries, stories have circulated about the supposed malevolent spirits that guard the resting places of the mighty pharaohs. These supernatural beings are said to unleash a torrent of misfortune upon anyone who dares disturb their slumber. The idea has captivated the human imagination, inspiring countless works of fiction and igniting fierce academic debates. But could there be more to these myths than meets the eye? Are the curses of the pharaohs nothing but superstitious nonsense? Or do they conceal a chilling reality that science may now be illuminating? While many view the pharaoh's curse as an intriguing yet ultimately baseless legend, a growing body of research suggests it may indeed carry a kernel of truth. From bizarre archaeological discoveries to startling scientific insights, modern evidence is converging to suggest that these ancient burial chambers might harbor more than just the remains of the pharaohs. Something sinister seems to linger within, waiting to be unsealed. The most famous curse associated with the pharaohs is undoubtedly the one attributed to King Tutankhamun's tomb. When British archaeologist Howard Carter uncovered the tomb in 1922, it was hailed as a monumental discovery. But soon, strange things began to happen. Within months, several members of Carter's team fell ill, and two even died under mysterious circumstances. The press latched onto these events, branding them as the work of an angry spirit, and the curse of Tutankhamun was born. However, modern science offers a different perspective. Analysis of the tomb's microclimate suggests that its unique combination of cold, dry air, and minute fungal spores could explain the ailments that afflicted Carter's team. These conditions, rather than any supernatural force, may have triggered the symptoms that became known as the curse. But the curse doesn't end with Tutankhamun. Ancient accounts tell of a number of pharaohs issuing dire warnings to those who would disturb their eternal rest. The discovery of their tombs, from Ramesses the Pigeon to Thutmose III, has often been marked by strange occurrences. One example is the tomb of Ramesses the Pigeon. In 1826, the explorer Giovanni Battista Belzoni entered the tomb and emerged suffering from a severe respiratory infection. While the tomb's dusty environment could explain his illness, some believe it was the curse of Ramesses taking effect. Similarly, Thutmose's tomb was discovered in 1837 by the Egyptian pioneer of archaeology, Ahmad Kamal al-Din. Soon after, he too fell gravely ill and died, leading some to attribute his fate to the pharaoh's curse. However, science offers a more rational explanation for these instances. Archaeologists working in Egyptian tombs often face the risk of inhaling dangerous particulates, a hazard not exclusive to the tombs of supposedly cursed pharaohs. In fact, such particles, including bacteria, fungi, and mineral dust, are common in archaeological sites worldwide. Take, for instance, the case of Howard Carter's assistant, Victor Lucas. He was the first to fall ill among Carter's team, succumbing to a bout of influenza shortly after exploring Tutankhamun's tomb. His illness was likely triggered by the same environmental factors that affected the rest of the team. This suggests that rather than a curse, it was the harsh conditions within the tombs that caused these health problems. But what about the cases where explorers seemingly met their demise soon after discovering these tombs? One example is the French engineer Joseph Seyss, who fell gravely ill and died just weeks after entering Tutankhamun's tomb in 1826. It seemed as though the curse had claimed another victim. However, a closer examination of the timeline reveals a more plausible explanation. While Seyss did become ill shortly after visiting the tomb, his death occurred nearly 3 years later, well beyond the typical incubation period for any tomb-related illnesses. Furthermore, no direct link can be established between his illness and his visit to the tomb. Considering these ambiguities, it's more reasonable to attribute his death to natural causes rather than the curse of the pharaohs. So what about the curse of the pharaohs? Is there any truth to these ancient warnings? The answer, it seems, lies somewhere between the realms of superstition and science. While the idea of vengeful spirits haunting Egyptian tombs is undeniably intriguing, modern evidence points towards more mundane explanations for the supposed curses. The health issues experienced by explorers can largely be attributed to the harsh environmental conditions within the tombs, such as the cold, dry air, and minute fungal spores. These factors, rather than any supernatural forces, could explain the ailments that have been linked to the curses. Moreover, the deaths that have occurred during or soon after explorations can be attributed to various natural causes without invoking the supernatural. In many cases, a clear link between the explorers' illnesses and their tomb visits cannot be established, suggesting that other factors were at play. However, while the curses themselves may not hold much weight, there is a darker, more sinister presence lurking in these ancient burial chambers that science alone cannot explain. Archaeologists and historians over the years have unearthed disturbing tales of violence, deceit, and unimaginable horrors that accompanied many pharaohs to their grave. The discovery of KV-62, King Tutankhamun's tomb, by Howard Carter in 1922 was a monumental event. However, the circumstances surrounding the discovery were tainted by a series of unsettling events. As Carter and his team prepared to excavate the tomb, one of the workers stumbled upon a small clay figurine depicting the goddess of protection, Nephthys. According to ancient beliefs, the presence of this figurine indicated that the tomb was cursed, and anyone disturbing it would suffer terrible consequences. Ignoring these ominous signs, Carter proceeded with the excavation, an action that would have grave implications. As the team descended into the tomb, they encountered a series of traps, including one that released a poisonous gas, narrowly escaping with their lives. The discovery of the tomb's occupant, covered in venomous snakes, further emphasized the danger they had faced. Despite these harrowing experiences, Carter continued his work, determined to unlock the secrets held within. But the misfortunes continued. Shortly after the tomb's opening, a member of Carter's team fell gravely ill and died. Then disaster struck when one of the excavators was crushed by a falling stone coffin, losing an arm and an eye in the accident. Even Carter himself was not spared, contracting a severe infection that nearly cost him his life. These tragedies led many to believe that the curse of the pharaohs had claimed its first victims, casting a dark shadow over the triumph of the discovery. The story of King Tutankhamun's tomb is just one of many filled with similar omens, traps, and tragic events. Each pharaoh's final resting place seems to be guarded by an unseen force, determined to keep their secrets buried. The curse of the Pharaohs, though possibly a myth, serves as a reminder of the dangers that lurk in the pursuit of knowledge and the thin veil that separates us from the unknown. In 1953, a group of researchers revisited King Tutankhamun's tomb to conduct further studies. Among them was renowned Egyptologist Howard Hayes, who made a shocking discovery that would send ripples through the archaeological community. As he descended into the tomb, he noticed something peculiar about the air. Despite being underground, the air within the tomb was noticeably fresher than the outside air. Intrigued, he decided to investigate. He collected samples of the air and brought them back to the surface for analysis. The results were astonishing. Hayes discovered that the air within the tomb contained a significant amount of radon gas, a naturally occurring radioactive substance that can seep into underground spaces from the soil above. At that time, the potential health risks of radon exposure were not fully understood. However, further research would reveal that prolonged exposure to high levels of radon can increase the risk of lung cancer. This groundbreaking discovery shed light on a potential explanation for the ailments and deaths that had befallen explorers of the Pharaohs' tombs. It suggested that the curse of the Pharaohs, if indeed it existed, might not be the result of supernatural forces, but of a very real and dangerous natural phenomenon. Radon gas, with its invisible and odorless presence, could have been seeping into the tombs for centuries, lying dormant until explorers ventured into its depths. Upon contact with this highly concentrated radon, their bodies could have been subjected to dangerous levels of radiation, potentially triggering a range of health issues from respiratory infections to more severe ailments. This revelation led to further investigations into the air quality of other Egyptian tombs. And what did they find? You guessed it, radon. Other ancient burial chambers, particularly those situated deep within the earth, were also found to contain high concentrations of this elusive gas. Suddenly, the supposed curses of the Pharaohs took on a chilling new dimension. Could the stories of misfortune and death be attributed to this silent, invisible threat? The notion that ancient Egyptians might have been aware of the dangers of radon is intriguing. After all, they were known for their advanced understanding of science and their keen observation of the natural world. It's possible that they incorporated measures to mitigate radon exposure into their burial practices, such as the use of ventilation shafts or specific burial chamber designs. However, despite their possible knowledge of radon, it seems the gas still managed to permeate these tombs, creating a hazardous environment for those who dared to disturb the Pharaoh's eternal slumber. It seems the mysteries surrounding the Pharaoh's curses may never be fully unraveled. While the idea of vengeful spirits haunting their tombs is captivating, it's the more mundane yet equally sinister presence of radon gas that may hold the key to these age-old enigmas. If you like this video, please subscribe and support us. Thank you very much. Ancient Rome, the eternal city, where history comes alive. From gladiators to emperors, these stories have echoed through time. But what if I told you that a ghost story haunts the very foundation of Rome? A haunting tale of love, loss, and betrayal that you won't want to miss. Emperor Hadrian, the ruler of the vast Roman Empire, was a man driven by ambition and conquest. But his sights were set on more than just land and power. He desired the undying devotion of his beloved Antinous. Their relationship was the talk of the empire, a passionate romance between the emperor and a young man who seemed to have captured Hadrian's heart like no one before. But this forbidden love story took a tragic turn during a vacation to Egypt. During their visit to the Temple of Aphrodite, Antinous met his untimely demise. Some say it was an accident, perhaps a slip and fall, while others whisper of foul play. But the truth remains elusive. Grief-stricken, Hadrian was devastated. Unable to bear the pain of losing his one true love, he embarked on a quest to keep Antinous' memory alive. He began by commissioning a series of sculptures and coins bearing Antinous' image. These works of art immortalized Antinous, ensuring that his face would be seen throughout the empire. But Hadrian's desire to preserve his lover's memory went beyond mere monuments. He founded a new city in Egypt, which he named Antinopolis, a place dedicated to the memory of his beloved. And he didn't stop there. To honor Antinous, Hadrian bestowed upon him a divine status. Temples were erected, sacrifices were made, and Antinous was celebrated as a god, a testament to the enduring power of love and loss. Hadrian's obsession with keeping Antinous' memory alive had an unexpected consequence. It diverted the emperor's attention away from the affairs of the empire, leaving some to question his ability to rule effectively. But despite these doubts, Hadrian's legacy lived on, shaped by both his imperial achievements and his passionate love story. So as you explore the ruins of ancient Rome and the enigmatic smile of the Antinous statue, remember the haunting tale that lies behind them. A story of a love so profound that it echoed through the ages and left an indelible mark on one of the most powerful empires in history. Rome, the legendary city that stood as the heart of the Roman Empire for over a millennium. Its strategic location in central Italy made it not just the cultural and political center, but also the key to controlling the Mediterranean. But the true essence of Rome lay in its identity as the seat of imperial power, the home of emperors who shaped the destiny of one of the largest empires in history. Imagine if someone had a crystal ball, a way to peer into the future and see the potential downfall of this great empire. How might that knowledge shape their decisions about Rome? And what if they chose to ignore the warnings of an impending decline? The consequences could be nothing short of catastrophic. Over the centuries, Rome faced countless threats, from barbarian invasions to internal power struggles. Yet somehow it endured until 476 AD, when the Western Roman Empire finally fell. But what if someone had foreseen this decline and decided to act? Perhaps the mighty walls of Rome itself, built to withstand invasions, might have seemed like the solution. After all, what could a few barbarians do against such a formidable defense? However, the wisdom of investing in defensive structures would have been lost on those who saw the warnings. Instead, they may have focused on expanding the empire, believing that more land and power would bring greater prosperity. They may have ignored the advice of those who urged caution, thinking that the warnings of decline were exaggerated or simply wrong. As the years passed, Rome's problems may have seemed to mount, from economic instability to social unrest. But instead of addressing these issues, the warnings could have led to further expansion and conquest. The relentless pursuit of more territory and resources could have strained the empire's infrastructure, making it more vulnerable to external threats. While the Roman legions were away on distant campaigns, the enemies at the gates might have grown bolder. The decline of Rome could have accelerated with each passing year, eventually culminating in the sack of the city and the collapse of the empire. In hindsight, it seems obvious that ignoring the warnings was a grave mistake. The fall of Rome is often seen as an inevitable outcome of internal decay and external pressures. But what if someone had chosen to heed the warnings? Perhaps the course of history could have been altered, and the Roman Empire might have continued to thrive for centuries to come. But in our timeline, the warnings went unheeded. Rome fell, and the Western Empire became a thing of the past. But let's take a closer look at how this could have unfolded in an alternate history. Imagine that an emperor, having witnessed the decline of previous empires, was determined to secure the legacy of Rome. Upon taking the throne, Emperor summoned his advisors, eager to hear their thoughts on how to protect the empire's future. Among them was a brilliant general with a keen understanding of both military strategy and the threats facing Rome. He proposed a bold plan. The vast territories of the empire were straining the military's resources, making it difficult to defend all fronts effectively. His solution, a strategic withdrawal, giving up some lands to focus on securing the heartland. Some advisors opposed this idea. They argued that giving up any territory would be a sign of weakness and could encourage further attacks from Rome's rivals. But the emperor was intrigued. Could concentrating resources on core territories make Rome more resilient? A wise senator, known for his knowledge of history, spoke up. He warned that attempting to match the empire's overextended borders with enough troops would only weaken the Roman forces. Rome, once famed for its invincible legions, was now struggling to defend its vast domains. But to retreat would be seen as a sign of fear, potentially emboldening their enemies. The emperor leaned back, pondering their words. The thought of losing any part of Rome's dominion was unsettling. But the warnings of decline and the need to protect the empire's core resonated with him. He recognized the importance of focusing on defense, making sure Rome could withstand the attacks that were sure to come. With careful planning, Rome could protect its vital heartland, while giving up outlying territories. This way, the empire's strength would be concentrated where it mattered most, ready to repel any invasion. The emperor turned to the general, acknowledging the wisdom in his proposal. Together, they would carefully select territories close to Rome that could be defended more easily, allowing them to free up resources and manpower for the crucial task of guarding the city's borders. But this decision was not without its challenges. Giving up territory was a difficult choice, and there would be those who opposed it. No one wanted to admit that Rome, with its invincible legions, was vulnerable. But the emperor knew that honesty and realism were essential to saving his empire. Rome was indeed under threat, and ignoring the warnings could lead to disaster. So the emperor chose to act, implementing the plan to safeguard the empire's core. By letting go of distant lands and focusing on defense, Rome stood a better chance at protecting its heartland and enduring for many years to come. The senators looked at the emperor in awe, recognizing the gravity of his decision. The fate of Rome hung in the balance. Would the emperor's choice prove to be the right one? Only time would tell. Now, here's a question for you. What do you think? Was it wise for Rome to abandon its distant territories and focus on defending its core? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Your feedback matters to us, and we value your input. If you found this journey through history and alternate realities intriguing, don't forget to hit subscribe and join us for more captivating stories. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history and the echoes of the past. Which historical moments do you want to explore next? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more. Till next time, stay curious. In 73 BCE, the Roman Republic was without a doubt the superpower of the ancient world. Its legions were the most disciplined fighting force on the planet, and its commanders were the undisputed masters of war. But in the shadow of all that power, a threat was simmering. It wasn't from a rival kingdom or a foreign army, but from the very heart of its brutal system of slavery. This is the story of how one Thracian gladiator with a debatable military past, but an undeniable genius for warfare would rise from the bloody sands of the arena to become Rome's worst nightmare. He'd unite an army of runaways and outcasts, outsmart seasoned Roman generals, and for 2 years, bring the most powerful republic in history to its knees. This is the story of Spartacus. The year is 73 BCE, are the owner of a gladiator school in Capua, and your coffers are overflowing. Not because business is good, oh no, that's terrible. Business is abysmal. No rich Romans are eager to part with their cash to watch the fights. Rome has just emerged victorious from the expensive and exhausting Third Macedonian War. Gladiator games are simply not in fashion. But wait, what's this? Your rival across town, Lentulus Petitus, has announced a new star attraction, a brutal fighter from Thrace named Spartacus. Oh, and news from Greece says some senator is offering a king's ransom to whoever brings him dead or alive. But why bother with the competition? You have all the money you need to be the best blood sport den in town. Spartacus belongs to you. So you assemble a team of assassins and go and grab him. Only problem is, it doesn't work. Spartacus escapes and brings your fighters back to the gladiator school. There's nothing left to do but call in the cavalry. Luckily, Rome's 7th Legion is nearby, busy putting down the latest slave revolt. You ask them to handle Spartacus while you clean up the mess. They do, sort of. Turns out the guy isn't going quietly. He leads the 7th Legion on a wild goose chase, frees some slaves, and then disappears. But don't worry, you think. The army has reinforcements on the way. Surely that'll take care of him. Yeah, about that. Seems they've got other ideas. Enraged, you vow to destroy him. And when you hear he's stolen your prized chariot, well, that's it. You're declaring personal war. If this sounds like the plot of a movie you've seen before, that's probably not a coincidence. Hollywood loves Spartacus. Maybe because his story is like an ancient Greek tragedy. We can see the disaster coming from a mile away, but we can't look away. This whole story started with a slave revolt, which in itself is hardly a fresh idea. Across history, oppressed people have risen up against their tormentors countless times. Spartacus's story is unique because of the character at its center. A warrior who form. As for whether Spartacus actually lived and fought these battles, well, the records are murky at best. Ancient historians tell tales of Spartacus, but they also offer wildly different numbers about his troop sizes and his military accomplishments. Many scholars believe Spartacus was a bigger-than-life creation of propaganda. If so, that makes him all the more fascinating. Whether he was real or not, the Romans believed he was real, and they feared him deeply. So let's dive into the legend. You've escaped with your life and a few weapons, but you're surrounded by loyalist soldiers and your escape route is blocked. How do you win? Simple. You go over their heads. At least that's what Spartacus did. With his small band of gladiators, he scaled the steep slopes of Mount Vesuvius, hoping to raid the nearby town of Nocera. But the loyalist soldiers followed and cut them off. They set up camp below, satisfied that their prisoners were trapped. But as night fell and the moon rose, Spartacus's men silently slipped down the mountainside and attacked the sleeping soldiers from behind. It was a massacre. But their biggest challenge was yet to come. Trapped on top of Vesuvius facing starvation, they needed a way out. But the soldiers below had blocked the roads with fortifications and patrols. Escape seemed impossible. So Spartacus did something the soldiers didn't expect. He looked at the wild vines clinging to the sheer cliffs of the volcano cliffs. The Romans rode off as impassable land. He didn't see an obstacle. He saw a highway. Under the cover of darkness, his men twisted those vines into ropes and ladders. Silently, they rappelled down the rock face, circled around the mountain, and crashed down on the sleeping Roman camp from the one direction they never bothered to guard. The attack was a slaughter. The Roman force was annihilated, and their commander barely escaped with his life. This was the world's first introduction to the tactical mind that would repeatedly make a fool of the Roman war machine. Our story starts in the deadly world of gladiatorial combat. Spartacus was a Thracian, and historians tell us that he was undefeated in the arena. But if the pits of ancient Rome are his true origin story, then we should remember that gladiators weren't just brutal killers, they were theatrical performers. They were trained to fight in choreographed ways that would entertain crowds. Their skills were less about stealth and subterfuge, and more about showmanship. So when Spartacus led a handful of fellow gladiators to freedom, they weren't necessarily ready for conventional warfare. They were experts at killing, yes, but open field battles were a different beast altogether. Most accounts agree that Spartacus, after getting his bearings, set about turning his ragtag band of gladiators into a fighting force. He organized them, drilled them, taught them to fight as a unit. Basically, he created an army from a group of individuals. But how do you build an army when everyone wants to leave and no one wants to join? You attract them with results. And Spartacus delivered, winning several small battles against isolated Roman units. News of these victories spread quickly. Soon, freed slaves, shepherds, farm workers, anyone who hated Roman rule or just wanted to loot some property, joined Spartacus's ranks. It was a motley crew, but they had one thing in common: hatred for their oppressors. Spartacus gave them purpose, gave him manpower. Within months, he went from leading a handful of gladiators to commanding tens of thousands of rebels. That's when the Romans decided it was time to send in the big guns. First, they sent Publius Varinius. He was handpicked by the consul Marcus Licinius Crassus, the same man who would lead the final effort to crush the revolt. But against expectations, Spartacus bested him in a series of engagements, forcing Varinius to flee. Next came the consuls, Lucius Gellius and Gnaeus Lentulus, each leading their own army. And Spartacus, well, he just kept at the Colline Gate. He tricked Lentulus into thinking he was leading his entire army into a suicidal charge. Then he turned around and smashed the other consul, Gellius's army. Twice in one day, Spartacus proved that he was more than a charismatic leader with a few tricks. He was a brilliant tactician. His greatest victory, though, would also be his greatest defeat. After sweeping through central Italy, Spartacus planned to escape with his followers over the Alps. He hoped to spark slave revolts throughout the Mediterranean. When his ships didn't arrive, he was forced to march his army south instead. Now severely outnumbered and low on supplies, he was cornered by Crassus's legions near the town of Sentinum. Over the next 2 days, Spartacus's troops were worn down, were ambushed, chased, and trapped by a massive wall and ditch spanning over 40 miles of rugged terrain. Finally, they fought a last-ditch battle in the rain. Spartacus charged forward, trying to reach Crassus himself. But according to Plutarch, he was injured and unable to finish the job. He was eventually cut down and killed. The other survivors were hunted down, captured, and crucified. Today, the legend of Spartacus lives on. Maybe he was 100% a historical figure, maybe 0%. But somewhere between those extremes is the truth. And in that truth is a story that resonates because it shows us that sometimes legends really are born from humble beginnings. For more on legendary leaders, check out our series on Hannibal Barca, the Carthaginian general who took on Rome, or watch our series on Julius Caesar, the Roman.
Story 1. The Birth of the World, Chaos to Cosmos. In the grand theater of existence, where the script of life is written in the stars, every story has a beginning, and the story of our world is no exception. It all started with a concept so simple, yet profound: chaos, not in the sense of disorder, but as the very essence of potential, a void pregnant with possibility. Imagine a canvas of infinite black, not the empty darkness of night, but the absence of everything. A state before time began its relentless march. In this timeless expanse, there was no up or down, left or right, no past, present, or future, just an eternal stillness that defied the boundaries of comprehension. Within this boundless nothing, three primordial deities emerged, each representing a fundamental aspect of existence. First among them was Gaia, the embodiment of the earth, a titaness whose form was the bedrock upon which the world would be built. Emerging from the swirling depths of chaos, she came forth as a symbol of stability, her presence anchoring the formless void. Following close behind was Uranus, the embodiment of the sky, his form stretching across the face of chaos, creating a firmament that divided the upper expanse from the lower void. As Gaia and Uranus took their places, the raw materials of existence began to coalesce around them, setting the stage for the grand drama of creation. But the celestial drama didn't end there. From the union of Gaia and Uranus, 6 children were born, the Titans, colossal in size and immense in power. These Titans, embodiments of the fundamental forces of nature, roamed freely in the primeval world, their every move shaping the raw canvas of existence. Their sister, Tethys, the personification of seawater, flowed through the nascent world, bringing with her the life-giving essence that would nurture life in all its forms. Atlas, with his back burdened by the weight of the heavens, held up the sky, creating the first division between earth and sky. Prometheus, the cunning, defied the gods to bestow fire upon mortals, bridging the gap between the divine and the human. His brother Epimetheus, on the other hand, heeded the advice of the gods, ensuring the survival and prosperity of the animals. Then there was Minos, the just, who became the king of the underworld, bringing order and balance to the realm of the dead. Finally, Cronus, the youngest, wielded the power of time, forever reminding mortals of the fleeting nature of existence. Thus, from the union of primal forces, the Titans were born, populating the newborn cosmos with their uninspiring presence. The world, once a formless void, was now teeming with life and movement. The Titans, in their primordial wisdom, understood their roles in maintaining the balance of this young world. They recognized that their actions had consequences, that their every move could shape the destiny of the world. Yet despite their colossal forms and godlike powers, the Titans were not seen as rulers of this new world. They were, in fact, caretakers, ensuring that the delicate balance of existence remained undisturbed. As the eons passed, the Titans continued their eternal dance, shaping and reshaping the world according to the will of the cosmos. And so the world turned from a chaotic void into a vibrant, living entity. The stillness was replaced by the gentle rustle of life. The endless expanse of night gave way to the twinkling brilliance of stars. Stars flickered into existence, one by one, each becoming a tiny furnace of creation, each holding within it the potential for life. And as these celestial fires ignited, they cast their warm glow upon the Titans, illuminating their colossal forms as they continued their eternal dance. Slowly, ever so slowly, the world began to take shape. Mountains rose, valleys formed, and the oceans swelled, all under the watchful gaze of the Titans. This was not a world of chaos anymore. It was a world in balance, a world on the verge of becoming home to countless forms of life. And as the Titans surveyed their creation, they must have felt a sense of pride, knowing that from the depths of chaos, they had helped bring forth the beauty and complexity of existence. And then from this vast beginning, new stories were born. Now, dear viewers, as the story of the world's creation comes to a close, we invite you to become a part of our story here at our channel. Your support means everything to us. So if you find joy in our retellings of these timeless tales, don't hesitate to show your support. Your likes are stars in our cosmic expanse, guiding our path and fueling our passion for bringing these myths to life. And if you'd like to be part of our cosmic community, hit that subscribe button. We've got more tales to tell, more myths to explore, and we'd love to have you along for the ride. But for now, let's take a moment to appreciate the journey we've shared. From the depths of chaos to the birth of the Titans, we've witnessed the unfolding of existence, the emergence of life from the void. It's a story that resonates with the deepest yearnings of our human experience. The quest for meaning and purpose in a vast and sometimes indifferent universe. The Titans, with their primordial wisdom and unwavering dedication to balance, serve as a reminder of our own potential. Like them, we too are tasked with shaping our world, with tending to the delicate balance that sustains life. As we step away from this primordial creation, let us carry with us the lessons learned, the balance upheld, the stories shared. Let the echoes of these ancient tales guide us in our own journeys, reminding us of the beauty and complexity of existence. For in the grand theater of existence, our story is not just being written, it's being lived, breathed, and passed down through the ages. And who knows, maybe one day your story will echo through the void, inspiring others as they navigate their own journeys through the vast expanse of life. Long ago, in the mythical days of old, there lived a fierce and powerful Titan named Kronos. Now, Kronos was the leader of the Titans, a race of colossal gods who ruled over the cosmos before the age of mankind. But despite his immense power and strength, Kronos was a god burdened by a terrible destiny. Ancient prophecy foretold that one day his own children would rise against him and steal his power. And consumed by fear, Kronos desperately tried to alter this grim fate. Now, when his first wife, the Titan goddess Gaia, bore him 5 children, 4 sons, and a daughter, he swallowed each one whole, keeping them safe within his eternally hungry belly. But his wife, clever and quick-witted Gaia, she had heard enough. When she became pregnant with their 6th child, a son, she tricked her husband into swallowing a stone wrapped in swaddling instead. Then, escaping to the hidden caves of the earth, she gave birth to their son in secret and hid the babe away from his father's sight. This was the beginning of the end for Kronos, for the babe was none other than Zeus, destined to be the greatest god of all. And so we find ourselves on the mystical island of Crete, where amidst the labyrinthine passages of a secret cave, a tiny babe lay nestled in a basket woven from reeds. His name was Zeus, son of Cronos, and his future was as bright and limitless as the sky above. Around him, the walls of the cave echoed with the soft lull of ocean waves, a lullaby that soothed him into peaceful slumbers. But Zeus wasn't alone in this secluded sanctuary. Beside his basket stood Amalthea, a gentle goat whose soft bleating and warm milk nurtured the infant god. Her large, soulful eyes watched over him, her presence as protective as any shield. And beneath the Milky Way, stretching out like a blanket of stars, Zeus grew. He grew unaware of the danger that lurked just beyond the cave's mouth, unaware of the prophecy that tied his destiny to his father's doom. Years turned into decades, and the boy grew into a strapping young man, his muscles rippling beneath his skin like waves crashing against the shore. But the tranquility of his life in the cave was shattered one fateful day when two eagles, their sharp eyes gleaming with celestial wisdom, descended from Mount Ida. Their message from his sister, Demeter, was urgent. It spoke of their father's tyranny, of the other titans imprisoned in the dark abyss beneath the earth, and of Zeus's crucial role in their liberation. The news shook Zeus, stirring within him a potent mix of anger and determination. He looked towards Amalthea, her gentle face etched with worry, and then to the starry sky, his eyes hardening with resolve. It was time for him to fulfill his destiny. He approached the mouth of the cave, hesitated for a moment, then stepped out into the blinding light of day. As Zeus emerged from his secluded haven, the world unfolded before him, vast and brimming with possibility. Yet he knew that his journey wouldn't be easy. His father, Cronos, was a formidable god, his power rivaled only by his cunning. But Zeus wasn't alone. In addition to his loyal goat companion, he had inherited the strength of the Titans, the wisdom of the gods, and most importantly, the unwavering support of his mother, Rhea. With their backing, he felt a surge of confidence that bolstered his resolve. But as he ventured forth, it became evident that Cronos wasn't the only one watching him. The realm of the Titans was a treacherous place, riddled with deceit and danger at every turn. Ambushes and traps lay in wait, orchestrated by Cronos's relentless pursuit of power. However, Zeus, with the help of his eagle companions, managed to evade each one, his courage growing with every challenge he overcame. These trials not only tested his strength, but also honed his strategic thinking and leadership skills. They were the crucible in which the great Zeus, the supreme leader of the Olympians, was forged. During these arduous years, Zeus didn't just fight. He formed alliances with the Hecatonchires, a race of colossal beings with 50 arms and 50 heads springing from each shoulder. Their immense strength was matched only by their loyalty and eagerness to aid the young Zeus in his battles against the Titans. Under Zeus's command, they charged into battle, wreaking havoc among the ranks of Cronos's army. Each victory drew the Titans closer to their doom. Yet Cronos, desperate to maintain his hold on power, unleashed his most fearsome weapon, the monstrous Typhon, a creature of pure evil with multiple heads and a heart that burned with infernal fire. This final confrontation was the culmination of Zeus's journey, a test of everything he had learned and endured. The battle raged, shaking the very foundations of the cosmos. Lightning cracked, thunder roared, and the clash of titans echoed through the void of space. But Zeus, drawing upon the strength of the Hecatonchires, the wisdom of the gods, and the love of his followers, fought with the ferocity of a cornered lion. Finally, with a mighty bolt of lightning, Zeus struck Typhon down, ending the reign of terror that had plagued the cosmos for so long. And with Typhon's defeat, Cronus's army crumbled. The Titans, broken and demoralized, fled to the distant corners of the earth, defeated but not entirely subdued. Cronos himself, stripped of his power and followers, was hurled into the abyss, banished to the darkest depths of Tartarus. There, chained and tormented, he spent his eternity, forever separated from his children and the power he had so desperately clung to. As the echoes of battle faded and the cosmos began to heal, Zeus knew that his work was far from over. The prophecy was fulfilled, but a new chapter was just beginning. With the help of his siblings, he set about the task of to the chaotic realm left in his wake. The world of Olympus was taking shape. In the aftermath of the Titanomachy, Zeus, the supreme leader of the Olympian gods, established his dominion over the cosmos. He divided the heavens, earth, and sea with his brothers Poseidon and Hades, setting the stage for the next era in the history of the gods. Yet, even as he basked in the glow of his hard-won victory, a shadow of unease lingered at the edge of his awareness. The giants, those colossal beings of primordial chaos, stirred in their slumber, drawn by the scent of discord and destruction that had stained the hands of the gods. Zeus knew that their awakening was inevitable, that soon he would have to confront yet another formidable foe. Despite this looming threat, Zeus took a moment to revel in his triumph. The gods of Olympus, led by him, had vanquished the Titans and restored balance to the cosmos. His gaze swept across the faces of his siblings and followers, each bearing the scars of battle, each a testament to the price of victory. In their eyes, he saw not just admiration and respect, but also a burgeoning sense of hope. Hope for a better future, a future where the gods and mortals could coexist in harmony. Yet this vision of peace was shattered by the chilling rumble of the earth. The giants were stirring. A tremor of anticipation ran through the assembly of gods. The prospect of another war, another struggle for supremacy, hung heavy in the air. But Zeus, ever the strategist, wasted no time in despair. With the unwavering support of his siblings and the resilience of the Olympian gods, he knew they would face this new challenge as they had the last. The fate of the cosmos was once again at stake, but this time it wasn't just about power or dominion. It was about proving that even in the darkest hours, hope and courage could prevail. The war with the giants had begun, and so the world of Olympus began to take shape. The gods settled into their celestial homes, their presence weaving the very fabric of the cosmos. Yet their reign was not without its challenges. For the giants, those primordial beings of chaos, stirred in their slumber, drawn to the scent of discord and destruction that stained the hands of the gods. But Zeus, the supreme leader, with the unwavering support of his siblings, stood ready to face any threat that dared challenge the order he had so valiantly fought to establish. So ends our tale of Zeus for today. But remember, his journey is far from over. The war with the giants looms on the horizon, and the fate of Olympus hangs in the balance. Will Zeus and his siblings prevail, or will the giants plunge the cosmos into chaos once more? Only time will tell. Until then, the world of Olympus awaits, brimming with promise and peril in equal measure. And as the gods settle into their celestial homes, one thing is clear: the age of heroes has begun. Hey there, welcome to this channel. This is where we come to share with you stories that bring the past alive, where we take myths and legends from all around the world and tell them in modern English so that they were easy for anyone to understand and enjoy. And today, we're going to be telling story 3 from our Origins series, The Creation of Humans. This story will take about 12 minutes to tell. So grab yourself a drink, sit back, and enjoy. Many, many ages before the first Olympic Games were held, before Zeus had taken over the rule of the cosmos, and before the Titans had fallen into a watery grave, there was no one on the earth to witness these things. Gaia, the earth, was lonely without children. She wanted to create people to live upon her and fill her with noise and laughter and songs. But she didn't want to make them alone. She wanted to give them life through her own body. Now, just after the fall of the Titans and the rise of Zeus, he had imprisoned his brother Atlas forever, condemned to hold up the sky on his shoulders. Now, Atlas wasn't actually bad, nor was he resentful of his eternal punishment. He even enjoyed being needed. But even though he was strong enough to hold up the whole of the heavens, sometimes the weight would still make him cry out in pain. When Gaia heard Atlas crying out, it made her feel sorry for him. She already felt lonely, and she hated the thought of any other being feeling that way. So she sent her son, the wind god Aeolus, down to Olympus to beg his father for a favor. When Zeus heard what his mother wished for, he knew exactly who he could send. Deep within the Caucasus Mountains, far from the prying ears of gods or men, lived the Titan Prometheus. Unlike many of his race, he had not fought against the Olympians, and he had never been taken prisoner. He'd avoided war by hiding away in his cave and making sculptures of animals out of stone. Even in those days, he was known as a great craftsman, but his greatest desire was to help others. In fact, some said he was too soft-hearted. He helped everyone, whether they were good or bad, and he did it with such skill that people would go to him for advice as well as gifts. Aeolus went to Prometheus's cave and told him of his mother's request. The wind god asked if he would go to her and offer to create humans out of clay, beings that would be born from the earth and live upon her forever. Prometheus accepted immediately. When Aeolus returned to his mother with the answer, Gaia was overjoyed and gave birth to 2 humans, a man and a woman. She then sent them to live among the mountains where Prometheus lived. As soon as he saw them shamble out of the forest, he knew he had to do more than just give them a place to stay. They needed to learn how to survive, how to find food, how to make tools, how to build shelter. So he began to teach them everything he knew, including how to sharpen a stone to make a knife, and how to start a fire from 2 sticks. But even after all his lessons, he knew that they would not last long. These humans were weak. They couldn't hunt large animals, and the cold would eventually kill them. Prometheus took pity on the humans again and decided to help them further. As the sun rose each day, he would mold more clay, and as the sun set, he would bring the new clay figures to life. One by one, he created human after human until his hands were raw and bloody. But he kept working, hoping that one of them would turn out to be special, that one of them would realize the world was a dangerous place and needed to prepare for the future. But none of them ever listened. They never thanked him, never learned from their mistakes. They simply kept repeating the same mistakes over and over again. One night, Prometheus sat on a nearby hill, watching the humans scurry about in the darkness. He watched them try to cook their food, but because they had no fire, it was bitter and hard to eat. Then he saw them huddle together for warmth, shivering uncontrollably. He continued to watch until they finally went to sleep, at which point he went to his cave, heartbroken at their stubbornness. He hadn't given up on them yet, though. He knew that if he showed them how to control fire, they would be able to cook their food and keep warm. But fire was something that belonged to the gods. It was dangerous and powerful and beautiful. Prometheus knew he wasn't allowed to steal it and give it to the humans. But seeing the pathetic state they were in, he couldn't bear the thought of leaving them to die. So, under the cover of darkness, he snuck onto Mount Caucasus, where Hephaestus had his forge. There he stole a large torch and ran back to his cave. There he used the torch to start a fire and took it out to show the humans. At first they were scared, thinking it might be a god come to punish them. But when they saw that it was just a simple fire, they began to cheer and laugh and dance. They thanked Prometheus and promised to honor him forever for his gift. And Prometheus finally felt like he'd done something right. But when Zeus found out the next day, he was furious. He ordered Prometheus to be chained to a nearby rock where an eagle would come and eat his liver every day, only for it to grow back every night, so that the process could repeat itself every day for eternity. And that's why Prometheus is often called the tragic hero. Now, some versions of this story say that the eagle only ate his liver once a year, but I prefer to think that it happened every single day. That way, Prometheus has to endure the pain every day, just like the humans he created have to endure hunger, cold, hardship, and death every day. We often look to ancient myths for lessons that can be applied to our lives today. And this story seems to have a lesson for both the humans and for Prometheus. The humans were too lazy and too stupid to improve themselves. They had potential, but they wasted it. But Prometheus also wasted his potential. He was a great craftsman and a kind-hearted titan, but he let his emotions get the better of him. Both the humans and Prometheus should have known that fire is a powerful force, both for good and evil. It brings light into darkness, but it can also cause destruction. It can keep you warm, but it can also burn you alive. It can cook your food, but it can also poison you. Fire is neutral. It does whatever you want it to do. And the humans had to learn this lesson the hard way, just like Prometheus did. And that's the end of this myth. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave us a comment. We love hearing what you have to say. And don't forget to check out our website, where you can read all of our stories for free. You can even sign up for our email list. Special thanks to our supporters, whose names you can see on screen right now. We couldn't have made this video without your support. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Once upon a time, in the days before there were any clocks or calendars, people lived their lives according to the seasons. In the springtime, they would plant their crops and then wait patiently for the harvest in the fall. In the summer, children would play outside all day, while their mothers picked berries and herbs, and their fathers mended fences and fished in the streams. And when winter finally came, they would stay inside by the fire and tell stories until it was time to start all over again. But for one woman named Demeter, the passing of the seasons brought only sorrow. For each year, when the time came for her daughter, Persephone, to return to the surface world, Demeter's heart would break a little bit more. Now, let me explain. Long ago, Persephone was just an ordinary girl who lived with her mother on a beautiful farm. It had golden wheat fields, grapevines heavy with fruit, orchards filled with pomegranates and peach trees, and almond groves laden with blossoms. Their farmhouse was surrounded by a high stone wall, and beyond that wall was the dark and dangerous underworld, ruled by Persephone's father, Hades, the god of the dead. You see, even though he was a god, Hades wasn't very powerful. His realm was far away from the world of the living, and most of the time the people up on the surface didn't even know he existed. But one day, while walking through her garden, Persephone happened to pick a flower, and when she did, the ground beneath her feet split open and she fell right into a hole leading down into the underworld. Now, fortunately, the hole wasn't very deep, and Persephone found herself sitting on a nearby stone ledge, which was good because if she had fallen any further, she might have been hurt. But sitting there in the soft light of the underworld, she felt something strange. The air around her was damp and cold, but not in a bad way. There was no sound except for the trickle of water somewhere in the distance. And somehow Persephone knew that this place was safe. That's when Hades appeared before her, riding in his chariot pulled by two great black horses. Now, even though Hades was a god, he didn't look very powerful. He was skinny and pale and dressed in rags. But when he spoke, his voice was surprisingly strong. He told Persephone that since she had fallen into hell, she must become his wife and queen of the underworld. At first, she was terrified and begged him to throw her back up onto the surface world. But Hades just kept insisting that she was destined to be his queen, and eventually she gave up. In fact, once Hades explained what being queen of hell would be like, it didn't sound so bad. She could have servants to wait on her hand and foot. They'd bring her food and drink whenever she wanted, and she could wear beautiful robes made of jewels and gold. So Persephone agreed to become Hades' wife. But after a while, she started to miss her old life. She missed her mother's warm hugs, and the smell of baking bread, and the sound of birds singing in the almond trees. She missed the feel of sunshine on her skin and the taste of sweet summer berries, and worst of all, she missed her friends. So she went to her new husband and asked him if she could just visit her mother for a few days. But Hades warned her that once she took a bite of food in the surface world, she wouldn't be able to return to hell again. Persephone promised to be very careful, and Hades finally agreed. And the next day, he gave her a pomegranate seed and told her that if she ate even one tiny bite of this fruit, she wouldn't be allowed back into hell. Then he put on his chariot and drove her back up to the surface world. When Persephone returned to her old home, her mother was so happy that she threw her arms around her and squeezed her tight. Demeter was so relieved that her daughter was back, and she cooked her favorite foods, and they ate together by candlelight and talked about everything that had happened. Then Persephone went out into the garden to look at her flowers, but when she leaned down to smell them, she remembered the warning that Hades had given her and quickly stood back up straight. She didn't want to go back to hell, so she decided to leave the garden and never touch any food from the surface world again. Then she stayed inside the house all day and night, refusing to eat anything or speak a single word. And that's how it went for 3 months. Persephone spent all her time alone in a dark room, too scared to eat and too sad to speak. And when Demeter saw that her daughter was wasting away, she finally figured out what had happened. The goddess was so angry at Hades that she cursed him and vowed to punish him forever. Then she went out into the fields and stopped caring for her crops. She didn't plant any seeds or pull any weeds or gather any fruit. She just wandered around all day in her nightgown, wailing and crying. As you can imagine, this wasn't good for the people who lived on the surface world. Without Demeter's help, nothing grew. Plants withered in the fields, and livestock died in the meadows. Crops failed, and famine spread across the land. Finally, the people couldn't take it anymore, and they went to live with King Zeus. They begged him to do something about the famine, and Zeus sent his son Apollo to go find out why the crops weren't growing. And when Apollo questioned Demeter, she told him everything that had happened. When Apollo heard that poor Persephone was trapped in hell, he went to his sister Artemis and begged her to help. Artemis took Apollo to a clearing in the forest, where 4 majestic deer stood waiting for them. Each deer represented one of the seasons, and Artemis led them to the highest mountain peak. That way, they could get close enough to hear what the gods were saying. Zeus gathered all the other gods and goddesses and told them that he had made a mistake. He shouldn't have allowed Persephone to marry his brother Hades, but now it was too late, and all he could do was figure out a solution. Zeus decided that Persephone would have to return to hell and be with her husband, but only for part of the year. Then she could spend the rest of the time with her mother on the surface world. That way, the crops could grow and the people would have food to eat. All the gods and goddesses cheered because they liked this idea. But Persephone and Demeter weren't so sure. Persephone was still in love with her husband, and she really wanted to live in hell with him. But if she did, she'd have to give up her old life forever. And Demeter had been so proud of her daughter before she went to hell, but now she didn't even recognize her. When Demeter looked at the girl she had raised, she saw someone cold and distant and unfriendly. And Demeter knew that if Persephone went back to hell, she would become just like her father. So Demeter went to the mountain peak and refused to listen to what Zeus had to say. She stomped her foot and yelled at him, demanding that Persephone be allowed to live with her forever. Persephone was too afraid to speak up, but the other gods and goddesses thought that her mother was being selfish. How could she ask Persephone to give up her chance at happiness just so that she could have her daughter around all the time? Finally, Zeus got so frustrated that he struck Demeter with a lightning bolt. Then he told her that she had no right to force Persephone to choose between her husband and herself. And just to prove it, he handed her a goblet filled with magic potion. Then Zeus commanded Demeter to give Persephone this drink, and whatever she did, she wasn't allowed to question. Demeter hesitated, but she didn't want to disappoint her husband. So she took the cup from him and went to her daughter's room. Persephone was sitting on her bed just like always, staring at the floor and picking at her fingernails. Demeter walked up to her and said, "Drink this." And Persephone obeyed without even asking what it was. After she finished the last drop, Demeter told her that she would soon feel very sleepy. Then she would go back to hell and live with her father and husband for the whole winter. At first, Persephone tried to argue with her mother, but when she felt the sleepiness coming over her, she knew that it was no use. Soon she would be going back to hell, and she didn't want to waste time arguing with her mother. Instead, she asked Demeter if she could just sit outside for a little bit longer and watch the flowers bloom. Demeter agreed, but she told Persephone that she must come inside right after sunset. But as soon as Demeter turned her back, Persephone slipped out of the house and ran to her favorite oak tree. And when she reached out to touch it, a beautiful white dove landed on her finger. The dove cooed softly and told Persephone that she didn't have to go back to hell. If she wanted to stay on the surface world forever, she could. Persephone thought for a moment. On one hand, she loved her mother and missed her old life. She also missed Hades and her home in hell. Finally, she made her decision. She thanked the dove and went back inside to talk to her mother. Demeter was so happy to see her daughter again that she hugged her tightly. Then she took her hand and led her out into the garden. They planted seeds and set up rows of fruit trees and bushes, then watered everything with magic water from a nearby spring. They worked all day, and by the time the sun began to set, their garden was beautiful. Hello, friends. It's time for another set of spooky stories. And this one is called The Seasons. Persephone was the most beautiful of all the maidens who lived on Olympus, the daughter of Zeus and the Titan goddess Demeter. She frolicked among the immortals, laughing and playing games, and sometimes she would earth to play in the gardens of the blessed or race through the forest with the dryads and naiads. She loved nothing more than wandering through the wildflower meadows of her mother's realm, picking bouquets of blooming poppies and bluebells and daisies, braiding them into wreaths and placing them on her head. One day when she was out gathering flowers, she heard the sound of a great rout among the trees, and peering around a trunk, she saw a band of handsome young men riding in golden chariots, their laughter echoing across the hills. They were looking for her, they said, because Hades, king of the dead, wanted to make her his queen. But she screamed and ran away, hiding from them among the trees, until at last she came to a deep cave opening at the roots of a nearby mountain. As soon as she stepped inside, the mouth of the cave closed behind her like a trapdoor, and when she turned around, she saw that it had been replaced by a massive wall, barring her way with adamant. She cried out for help, but her voice echoed back to her, mocking and cold. Then the ground began to tremble beneath her feet, and the walls of the cavern started to close, squeezing the air out of her lungs. Great plumes of shadow rose up from the floor, coiling around her like serpents, hissing as they crushed her spirit. The cave grew colder and colder, and Persephone shivered, wrapping her arms around herself. She felt the life draining out of her, the warmth of her blood turning to ice water. When she touched the floor, she found it hard and cold. Her limbs began to stiffen. The shadows pressed closer, stealing her breath and numbing her whole body until finally everything went black. When Persephone didn't come home that night, Demeter searched for her, calling her name, cracked with despair. No flowers bloomed under the sun that day, and the trees bore no fruit. The very soils withered and died, turning to dust that blew away on the wind. Days passed, weeks and months, and still there was no sign of her daughter. So Demeter wandered aimlessly over the barren landscape, dragging her feet through the dirt. The grass refused to grow. The trees stood naked and shivering in the cold, and the air itself was heavy with the stench of death and decay. Then one day Demeter came to a riverbank where the water had turned to blood, and the banks were piled high with corpses. Some were infants, some were old, some were warriors, some were priests and priestesses, some were mothers holding their children close. And when Demeter leaned down to try to speak to them, she heard them weeping and wailing, begging her to save them, to take them from this place and warm them by the fire of her hearth again. But Demeter shook her head sadly and walked away, for she knew they were beyond saving. Only Persephone could bring them back, and without her, there was nothing Demeter could do. The seasons turned, but none of them brought Persephone home. Winter came and blanketed the world in ice, and still Demeter wandered, now wrapped in furs, huddling against the biting wind. Snow melted eventually, leaving only mud and mire in its wake. And Demeter kept walking, her heart breaking a little more with every step. What was she even looking for now? How could she have hoped to find her child after all this time? What had she been thinking? And so Demeter made her way down from the mountains, away from the forests and the fields, away from everything that reminded her of Persephone. She descended and silent city, the halls of which were lined with statues instead of people. Every surface gleamed with polished marble and silver, but there was no light, no warmth, no sound of life, and Demeter realized with a start that this was what her world had become. This was what she had wrought. No joy, no growth, no love, only endless silence and death. And she understood then that if Persephone didn't come back, there would be no end to this. It would never change. So Demeter sank to the cold flagstones and wrapped her arms around her knees, burying her face in them and sobbing. Her tears fell onto the marble and instantly froze there. And yet, as she wept, a tiny green shoot pushed up through a crack in the pavement. A few leaves unfurled on a nearby fig tree. A bud burst open on a blossoming almond branch, and the sweet smell of nectar drifted through the air. Demeter sniffed and lifted her tearful gaze to look at the source. And there, in the center of the city, a single flower had opened in the wasteland, pushing its way up through the cracks in the stones and reaching for the pale sky. Its petals were the color of sunshine, and its fragrance was sweet as Persephone's laughter. The flower bloomed, and Demeter watched, mesmerized, as the petals unfurled one by one, until at last the flower was fully open. And in its heart, Demeter could have sworn she saw her daughter's face, smiling up at her, beckoning her closer. And Demeter did go closer. She moved among the frozen flowers, touching each one gently and whispering words of comfort. She caressed the budding branches, coaxing the leaves to unfurl and dance in the breeze. As she moved from blossom to blossom, the statues along the walls began to stir. Their marble limbs creaked as they slowly uncoiled, and their silver eyes flickered with returning life. At first they were confused, not knowing where they were or why they were here. But as more and more flowers bloomed around them and the trees rustled overhead, they remembered who Demeter was and what she had taught them, and they cheered as the river beside them ran clean and clear once. Fields beyond the city walls turned green and gold and bloomed with colorful flowers. Demeter smiled, feeling Persephone's spirit all around her, guiding her people back to her. But the flower she had first seen in the center of the city remained the brightest of them all, its petals shimmering like jewels in the sunlight. And as Demeter reached out to touch it, she heard a voice. "Mother," it said, "I am here." And Demeter knew that meant Persephone had returned. And then her daughter stood before her, radiant as the sun, beautiful as the moon, crowned with stars and wreathed in flowers. She wore a gown of starlight and a necklace of moonlight, and her eyes shone of ages. "I am sorry," Persephone said, "for being gone so long." "I know," Demeter replied, "but you are back now, and that is. You must tell me what happened to you." And Persephone told her mother about her journey to the underworld, about Hades and the pomegranate seeds. He had tricked her into staying there with him. But then Demeter cupped her daughter's face in her hands and said, "You know that I will always love you, Persephone." "Yes, my child, I do," Demeter said, "but don't forget so your mother." And Persephone knew that meant she had to honor her oaths, she had to keep her word. So Persephone took her mother's hand and squeezed it. "Don't worry," she promised. "I will come back to you, mother. You have my word." And Demeter felt something shift within her. some deep instinct stirring, memory awakening. "Of course," she said, "of course you will." And Persephone did return to her mother's side every year, bringing warmth and life and growth to the world again. And every year when she left, Demeter grieved, and the world grew cold and barren once more. But Persephone always came back, and Demeter always waited for her, knowing that this was the way things had to be. This was the way it had always been, and this is how it would stay forever. Thank you for listening, friends, and thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you liked it, please show your support, and I'll see you next time. Once upon a time, in a faraway land, there was a young man named Orpheus. Now, Orpheus wasn't just any young man. Oh no, he was a musician. And not just any musician, mind you, but one whose music could move the very soul. Orpheus would wander through the forests and fields, his lyre in hand, and the moment he began to play, the trees and flowers would sway to the rhythm. The birds would stop their songs and listen, and even the babbling brooks seemed to flow in time with the music. That's how wonderful his music was. It flowed from him as naturally as water flows from a spring. And just as water shapes the world around it, so did Orpheus's music touch the hearts of all who heard it. One day, as he was playing in a forest, a deer approached him, its eyes shining with wonder. And as the deer stood there listening, a hunter who had been tracking the animal suddenly forgot his purpose. He dropped his bow and arrows and sat down to listen to the enchanting music. And so it went. All who heard Orpheus's music were captivated by it. They forgot their worries and their tasks and simply basked in the melodies that seemed to wash over them like the warmth of the sun. But Orpheus didn't just play for the animals and the trees. Oh no. He had a special love in his life. Her name was Eurydice, and she was the most beautiful woman in the land. Her laughter was like the tinkling of bells, and her eyes shone brighter than the stars. And when Orpheus played his lyre for her, the music seemed to pour out of him even more freely. It was as if he poured his very soul into the strings. And Eurydice, leaning against a tree or sitting by a stream, would listen with an expression of pure bliss on her face. Now, you might think that this was a fairy tale ending, that these two lovers would live happily ever after, but alas, that was not meant to be. For one day, as Orpheus was playing in the fields, a snake suddenly darted out from among the flowers and bit him on the foot. And even though the wound was small, the pain was great. Poor Orpheus. The music died on his lips, and he cried out in anguish. Now, normally, a simple bite from a snake wouldn't be so bad, but, unfortunately, this was no ordinary snake. It was one of the many minions of Hades, the god of the underworld. And this particular serpent was a trickster. Its bite carried a curse that would soon steal away Eurydice's life. When Orpheus learned this, he was stricken with grief. He loved Eurydice more than anything in the world, and the thought of losing her nearly drove him mad. He rushed to her side, but it was too late. Took hold, and as he watched, Eurydice's laughter faded, her eyes lost their sparkle, and her skin grew cold. Before long, she was nothing more than a lifeless doll. Can you imagine Orpheus's despair? He had poured his heart and soul into his music for Eurydice, and now she was gone. In his anguish, he did the only thing he could think of. He traveled to the underworld and begged Hades to return Eurydice to him. But Hades, who ruled the underworld with an iron fist, was not moved by Orpheus's pleas. Now, he boomed, and no one can take her from me. So Orpheus was forced to return home without his beloved, his heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. And that, my little friends, is a truly sad ending to a story. A love and a music so enchanting, cut short by the cruel hand of fate. But wait, before you go all doom and gloom on me, let me offer you a different way of looking at it. You see, Orpheus's music didn't actually die when he did. Sure, it faded away from the ears of those who were still living, but it didn't disappear. You see, when Orpheus played his lyre, the music didn't just fill the air, it became part of the air itself. It mingled with the songs of the birds, the babbling of the brooks, and the rustling of the leaves. In other words, it became part of nature's own music. So even though people couldn't hear his music anymore, that didn't mean it was gone. It was all around them, hidden of the natural world. And here's the beautiful part. Whenever someone stops to listen closely enough, they can still hear it. They can hear the echo of Orpheus's music in the wind that whispers through the trees, or in the gentle lapping of waves on the shore. It's a reminder that even when our time here is done, our art, our creations, they live on. They live on in the world around us, waiting for someone with a listening heart to hear it. So perhaps Orpheus's music didn't die. Perhaps it simply becoming one with the music of the spheres, as the ancient Greeks used to say. Now, I know this doesn't bring Eurydice back, nor does it ease the pain of losing her. But maybe, just maybe, it gives us a little hope, a little faith that the things we create, the love we share, they don't always have to stay confined to the boundaries of time. Maybe they have a chance to become eternal, to become part of something bigger than ourselves. That, my little friends, is a much sweeter ending, isn't it? So even though our time here is limited, the things we do and the love we give, they can continue to exist in some form or another. And who knows, maybe that's where Orpheus is now, up in the realm of the gods, playing his lyre for all eternity and creating music that is as eternal as the stars. Now, I'd like to end this video with a little quiz. What did Orpheus play? If you guessed the guitar, you'd be wrong. He actually played the lyre. The lyre is an ancient instrument that looks a bit like a harp, but smaller. It has a sound box, which is basically a hollow container that makes the sound louder. And instead of frets, it has strings that run the length of the instrument. Why am I telling you this? You might ask. Well, because it's important to pay attention to details. Just like Orpheus paid attention to every note he played, every chord he strummed, because music is all about the details. The same goes for life. If we pay attention to all the little things, the small joys, the tiny wonders, then life becomes a beautiful symphony. And who knows, maybe we'll even create a few sweet melodies along the way. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to hit the like button and share it with your friends. And if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel and join our ever-growing family. We have so many more wonderful stories to share with you. Until then, goodbye. Once upon a time, high up in the mountains, lived a man called Heracles. He was a dreamer, a thinker, a doer of great things. But one day he had a dream that changed everything. He dreamed he was given 3 tasks to accomplish for the king of a faraway land. Now, these tasks were not easy, but something about them called to him like a song. So he woke up before sunrise and began his journey to see the king and hear more about these tasks. As he walked, he came across a field full of animals, and among them, a golden hind caught his eye. Its fur shone brighter than the sun, its antlers taller than the trees, and he thought, perhaps this is the first task to tame this wild creature. So he approached it slowly, speaking in a voice as soft as the wind. But the hind snorted and pawed the ground and leaped away, hills and dales. So Hercules ran after her, his feet barely touching the earth, as he chased her through valleys green and rivers wide. And finally, when the sun began its slow descent, the hind stopped and let out a sigh. And Hercules knew that this was only the beginning. So he sat beside her, sharing his water and calming her with gentle words. And as night fell, they curled up together under a sky full of stars. And by the next morning, the hind was tamed and ready to walk beside him. They continued their journey until they reached a riverbank where a small hut stood alone. And there, sitting on a stone, was an old man. He smiled at Hercules and said, "You have shown great patience and kindness. Your first task is done." Then he pointed to the sky, where a small bird circled slowly. "Tame that bird," he said, "and bring it back here." So Hercules looked up and saw that it was no ordinary bird, but a golden eagle, proud and free. As it soared over forests deep and mountains high, until finally it landed on a branch, looking down at him with eyes as sharp as its beak. So he sat on a nearby rock and waited patiently for hours, until finally the eagle, tired of its flight, flew down and perched on his arm. And when it did, the old man said, "You have shown great courage and gentleness. Your second task is done." Then he led them to a cave hidden behind a waterfall. "Clean up this place," he said, "and make it fit for a king to live in." So Hercules went inside and found that it was filled with all kinds of dirt and waste, but he didn't despair. Instead, he took off his cloak and used it as a towel, wiping down the walls and floors until they gleamed like polished marble. Then he put on his cloak again and stepped outside, where the old man was waiting with a smile. "You have shown great diligence and perseverance. Your third task is done." Then he led Hercules to a nearby village where the king awaited him. And when the king saw Hercules, he was so happy that he embraced him and said, "You have done well, my son. I am proud to call you my hero." Then he led him into the palace, where a feast had been prepared in his honor. And as Hercules ate and drank, he felt a sense of satisfaction and peace, for he had completed his tasks not through brute strength or cunning, but through patience, kindness, and perseverance. And as the celebration continued late into the night, he knew that he would never forget what he had learned on his journey. He had faced many challenges, but he had not been afraid. When he had seen the golden hind, he had not been daunted by its wildness, but had approached it slowly and gently until it had become his companion. When he had tracked the golden eagle, he had not been discouraged by its freedom, but had waited patiently until it had chosen to rest on his arm. And when he had cleaned the dirty cave, he had not complained about the hard work, but had done it with a cheerful heart. And now, as he sat at the king's feast, he knew that he was not just a hero, but a better person because of what he had learned on his journey. He had discovered the power of patience, the value of kindness, and the strength of perseverance. And he knew that he could carry these lessons with him for the rest of his life. As the night wore on, he shared stories of his journey with the king and the villagers. He told them how he had tamed the golden hind by being patient and kind, how he had captured the golden eagle by being courageous and gentle, and how he had cleaned the dirty cave by being diligent and cheerful. And as he spoke, The villagers leaned in, captivated by his tales. They had never heard of anyone who had tamed a golden hind or flown on the back of a golden eagle, and they were amazed by his stories of adventure. But most of all, they were impressed by his perseverance and determination. They had never met anyone who had faced so many challenges and come out on top with a smile on their face. And as Hercules finished his stories, the villagers erupted in applause. They cheered and celebrated their hero, and he basked in their adulation. He knew that he had accomplished something great, not just by completing the king's tasks, but by inspiring others along the way. But as the celebration came to an end, Hercules felt a sense of sadness. He had enjoyed his time in the village, and he was going to miss the people he had met. But he knew that his journey was not over yet. He still had to return home and resume his normal life. And as he prepared to leave, the king came up to him and placed a hand on his shoulder. "My son, you have done well," he said. "I am proud to call you my hero." Then he handed him a scroll. "This is your reward," he said. "It is a symbol of your bravery and perseverance." And when Hercules read the scroll, he was stunned. It was a proclamation from the king, declaring him a hero of the kingdom. It was a testament to his courage and determination, a surge of pride as he read it. Then he turned to go, and the villagers gathered around him, chanting his name and waving their hands. He smiled back at them, grateful for their support and admiration. But as he walked away, he knew that he would never forget what he had learned on his journey. He had faced many challenges, but he had not been afraid. He had shown kindness to the animals, courage to the eagle, and diligence to the cave. And now he was being rewarded for his efforts. He was not just a hero, but a role model for others. And as he continued his journey home, he reflected on what he had learned. He had discovered the power of patience, the value of kindness, and the strength of perseverance. And he knew that he could carry these lessons with him for the rest of his life. He had not just completed the king's tasks, but had become a better person because of it. And as he walked on, he knew that he was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. And that is the story of how Hercules completed his labors and returned home a better hero than he was before. If you liked this story, please subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos. And always remember, no matter what challenges you may face in life, you have the strength and resilience to overcome them. Just like Hercules, keep going. Once upon a time, there was a hero named Bellerophon who lived in the city of Iolcos. Now Bellerophon was a handsome guy, brave and strong, and all the girls loved him. But he wasn't so keen on being a hero. All that slaying monsters and going on quests stuff was way too much pressure for him. He just wanted to chill. But fate had other plans for him. One day, while strolling through the city, he saw this old dude, a messenger from the gods, looking super distressed. So Bellerophon, being the nice guy he was, asked if everything was all right. And the messenger spilled the beans. See, King Poseidon had sent him to find someone worthy to ride his son Pegasus. You know, Pegasus, the majestic winged horse. But unfortunately, the old guy wasn't getting any younger and was afraid he would unfind the right person in time. Now, Bellerophon thought, maybe I could help. And immediately he had an idea. If he rode Pegasus, that would totally make him a hero. No more worries about slaying monsters or going on quests. He could just hang out with the gods. It was a brilliant plan. But then the old man said, "Wait, you can't ride Pegasus. Only a true hero can." And Bellerophon thought, well, Now I have to become a hero. Awesome. Not so fast. The old man continued. You see, only someone pure of heart and untainted by deceit can ride him. And guess what? Bellerophon was a bit of a liar and a trickster. He wasn't exactly the pure-hearted type, but he could fake it, right? So he agreed to give it a try. The old man led him outside the city to this cave where Pegasus was chilling. And when Bellerophon saw him, his jaw dropped. It was breathtaking. His wings were huge, like sails on a ship, and his body was white as snow. Bellerophon approached him, trying to look all heroic and stuff. But Pegasus snorted and stamped his foot, almost kicking Bellerophon's butt. Clearly, he wasn't buying this fake hero act. The old man said, Hey, kiddo, you gotta win Pegasus's trust first. Just take it easy and be yourself. So they started playing some games together. Bellerophon pretended to be a fierce warrior, brandishing his sword and shield, but Pegasus just kept on mocking him, running circles around him. After a while, Bellerophon sat down on a nearby stone, defeated. He took off his helmet and let out a huge sigh. And in that moment, something amazing happened. Pegasus trotted over to him and nuzzled his hands. It was like a spark of magic had ignited between them, and the old man shouted, Hooray! Looks like you've tamed him. And Bellerophon was like, Sweet, let's fly to Olympus and party with the gods. But the old man was all, Hold your horses, literally. First, you gotta prove yourself in battle. Only then can you fly to Olympus. And Bellerophon was all, Oh, come on, I don't want to fight. But the old man was like, Too bad, kiddo, that's how it goes. Now get out of here before Pegasus changes his mind. And with that, he vanished. So Bellerophon was left there thinking, Well, I guess it's time to become a hero, whether I want to or not. He looked at Pegasus and said, All right, buddy, let's do this thing. And with that, they flew into the sky. Now, soaring through the air on the back of a magical winged horse was truly a sight to behold. Bellerophon clung tightly to Pegasus's mane as they swooped and dived, feeling the wind whip through his hair. Below him, the world looked like a patchwork quilt, fields and forests, rivers and roads, all jumbled together. It was amazing. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the sky blazed with hues of orange and purple. Stars began to glimmer into existence, one by one, until the heavens were studded with diamonds. It was breathtaking. Bellerophon felt a sense of freedom he had never known before. Up here, high above the world, he was invincible. Nothing, absolutely nothing, could touch him. Then suddenly, a dark cloud loomed on the horizon, growing larger by the second. In a flash, it was upon them, unleashing torrents of rain that beat down on Bellerophon's face like needles. Thunder roared above them, and lightning flashed, momentarily illuminating the furious expression on Pegasus's face. The once gentle eyes were now narrowed, his nostrils flared, and his wings were beating hard against the wind. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning struck Pegasus's wing, and he cried out in pain. The wound was deep and blood-stained, the pure white feathers black. Don't worry, buddy, Bellerophon shouted over the wind. I'll help you. And with that, he grabbed his bow and arrows, which miraculously hadn't gotten wet, and turned to face the storm. Now, normally, Bellerophon was all about finding peaceful solutions to problems. You know, like talking things out or making a cool compromise. But this situation called for action, and he knew it. He took aim at the dark cloud, letting loose a volley of arrows that disappeared into the gloom. Then he did something crazy. He jumped off Pegasus's back and, with his shield held high, charged straight into the storm. He didn't know what kind of monster was hiding inside that cloud, but he was determined to protect Pegasus and finish his quest. As he ran, the wind tore at his clothes, rain stinging his eyes and ears, but he didn't care. This was his chance to prove himself, not just as a hero, but as a friend, too. Inside the cloud, the wind howled like a hungry wolf, whipping around Bellerophon, trying to knock him off his feet. But he held on tight to his shield, his legs churning as he raced forward. Suddenly, the ground beneath him cracked and split, and he tumbled down, 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 into a dark and narrow cavern. Bellerophon landed with a thud, his shield clattering away into the darkness. Dazed, he looked around. The cavern was damp and smelled of mildew. Strange formations of stalactites and stalagmites rose from the floor and ceiling, and in the distance he could hear the sound of rushing water. Struggling to his feet, he brushed dirt off his clothes and picked up his shield. Then he started walking, venturing deeper into the cavern. The sound of the rushing water grew louder, and soon he came upon a large chamber ahead. In the center of the room was a magnificent waterfall cascading down into a deep pool. Sunlight streamed in from a hole in the ceiling, creating a rainbow mist in the air. But it was what stood behind the falls that truly caught Bellerophon's attention. There, bathed in a soft golden light, was a beautiful woman. Her hair was long and flowing, her skin glowed with an ethereal light, and her eyes sparkled with wisdom and kindness. As she turned, revealing her face, Bellerophon gasped, for it was none other than Athena, the goddess of wisdom and courage. "Athena," he exclaimed, kneeling before her, "I seek your wisdom, guide me in my quest." Athena regarded him for a moment, her gaze penetrating, before speaking in a voice that resonated with power and grace. "Hero Bellerophon, your journey has been marked by bravery and determination, yet your quest is far from over." She raised a hand, and a golden trident materialized in her palm. "This is the token of my favor bestowed upon you for your valor. Take it, wield it with wisdom, and may it serve as a reminder of your purpose." Bellerophon accepted the trident, his hands trembling slightly. "I am honored, great Athena, but what is my purpose?" A knowing smile touched Athena's lips. "Your purpose, Bellerophon, lies in the balance between strength and wisdom. Use the trident wisely, and it will aid you in your battles, guiding your path to victory. But remember, true strength is not just physical, it is also found in wisdom and justice." With that, Athena vanished, leaving Bellerophon in awe. He clutched the golden trident, its weight a comforting presence in his hand. He knew his quest was far from over, but with Athena's wisdom and his own determination, he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. And as he turned to leave the cavern, a new sense of purpose filled him. He would use the trident not just as a weapon, but as a symbol of wisdom and justice. He was no longer just a hero seeking glory. He was a champion of the people, a protector of the innocent. Emerging from the cavern, the storm had vanished and the sky was clear, the sun shining brightly once more. As Bellerophon mounted Pegasus once again, he knew that his journey was just beginning. With the wisdom of Athena guiding him, he was ready to face any monster, any challenge. His heart swelled with courage, his spirit soared with hope. He was no longer just Bellerophon, son of King Sisyphus. He was Bellerophon, the hero, the champion. Pegasus spread his magnificent wings, catching the sunlight, and with a powerful beat, they launched themselves into the air. Together, hero and winged horse became one, their spirits intertwined in a bond of courage and adventure. As they soared through the clouds, Bellerophon knew his destiny awaited him, and he embraced it with open arms. Their first stop, Mount Chimera, where a terrible monster awaited. But for now, it was time to rest. Bellerophon had proven himself worthy of riding Pegasus. They had faced the storm together and emerged stronger because of it. And as the sun set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, they flew towards Olympus, the home of the gods, where the heroes of old were celebrated with feasts and songs. There, among the laughter and joy, Bellerophon knew his adventures would continue, each day bringing new challenges, new victory.
Imagine staring into the eyes of the Egyptian gods. For centuries,
In this video, we are going to look at Story 9 from the Dollar Book of Greek Myths. In this story, we learn how Athena was born from Zeus's head, sprang fully grown, wise, and intelligent, and she became the patron goddess of Athens. Now, if you'd like to retell these myths with your kids, then check out our storytelling cards available online. We've taken all 9 stories from this book and made them into beautiful illustrated cards which you can use to tell the stories in your own words or use as inspiration for creative writing prompts. You can even use them with figurines such as Lego S or action figures to help bring the stories to life. As always, before we start, I just ask that you please remember to like this video. Now, without further ado, let's get started. The birth of Athena. Now, Athena was a very special child. She didn't need a mother. In fact, she sprang fully grown from the head of her father, Zeus, after he swallowed his pregnant wife, Metis, who had previously been the goddess of wisdom and the embodiment of intelligence. So Athena was the personification of wisdom and intelligence, calm and clear thinking, always ready with the right answer. And when it came time for her to be born, Zeus felt a terrible pain in his head. He couldn't think straight, and his vision blurred. He called out to his brother Poseidon, the god of the sea, for help, but Poseidon wasn't there. So instead, Zeus went to Hephaestus, the lame blacksmith god, and asked him to split open his skull. Now, the only way that they could do this was by creating an opening at the top of Zeus's head so that Athena could emerge. But Athena was so large that Zeus was afraid that his skin would rip apart. So Hephaestus made a small incision at the top of Zeus's head, and Athena's head burst through. She was fully grown, wearing a helmet and carrying a shield and a spear. She tumbled out of her father's head and landed beside him, fully armed. So now you're probably wondering, what happened to Zeus's skull? Well, the answer is really quite simple. It became the constellation we call Aquarius. This constellation is depicted as an old man pouring water from a vase. And that vase, well, that's actually Zeus's helmet. Now, Athena was a fierce warrior, but unlike the other gods, she was never driven by emotion or passion. She chose to always remain pure, untainted by either love or war. Once, when she was traveling to the city of Athens, she noticed that 2 heroes, Erechtheus and Theseus, were about to engage in battle over who had the right to rule. So Athena dropped down from the sky and stopped them. She told them that whoever of the 2 could harness her favor would become king of Athens. Then she disappeared into the city. Now, both of these heroes prayed to Athena for assistance, but it was Theseus who built the first altar to Athena in Athens, and so Athena chose him as the winner. She was also known as the protectress of travelers, and she helped many heroes on their journeys, including Odysseus, who had to travel home across the sea. She sent him a favorable wind, a guiding star, and a safe harbor. And she was also instrumental in helping Perseus defeat the sea monster Cetus. She drove Cetus toward the island of Delos, where Perseus killed him. But perhaps Athena's greatest gift to humanity was the olive tree. When she was chosen to be the patron goddess of Athens, she gave the people of Athens an olive tree as a symbol of her protection. And this tree was incredibly special because its branches were laden with fruit, and the oil produced from its fruit could be used for cooking and for fuel. The other goddesses had each offered the Athenians something else. Aphrodite promised beauty, Apollo promised music, and Artemis promised wild animals. But none of those gifts were as useful as the olive tree. So the people of Athens chose Athena as their patron goddess. Now, Athena was a virgin goddess, and she hated it when mortals tried to force her into marriage. Once, when she was in disguise, walking along a road, she was approached by a satyr who wanted to marry her. But Athena turned him into a stone, and when his rear end stuck out, she mocked him for being too full of wine and too slow of mind. She also cursed him to always be that way. And another time, when she was bathing, a suitor named Midas peeked in on her, and she turned him into a donkey. Now, Athena was a master craftsman and inventor, and she was responsible for teaching mortals how to create many different things. She taught them how to work with metal, how to make tools, and how to build houses. She invented the plow, the saw, the axe, and even the flute. And Athena's owl, which was sacred to her, was the messenger of the night, and it could talk and predict the future. So I think one of the reasons why Athena is so popular amongst the Olympians and the mortals alike is because she gives us everything we need to survive and thrive. She gives us knowledge and wisdom, tools and inventions, guidance and protection. I mean, what more could we ask for? Now, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed today's story. And if you have any comments or suggestions, then feel free to leave them below. I'll see you next time. Bye. And we're going to start with a very short one. A long time ago, in a faraway land, there was a girl who lived in a small village near a big forest. The girl's name was Echo, and she had a very soft and beautiful voice. She loved to sing while working in the fields, or while walking through the forest. The birds would stop their singing when she sang. The flowers would bend their heads to listen to her, and the trees would sway to the rhythm of her voice. But, unfortunately, Echo was very shy, and she was afraid to use her beautiful voice in public. She would always hide behind the trees or the bushes when people passed by, so that they could not hear her singing. One day, Echo was walking through the forest, and she came across a clearing. In the middle of the clearing was a small lake, and its surface was as still as a mirror. Echo sat down on a nearby stone and started singing. She sang about the beauty of the forest, about the birds and the flowers and the trees. And as she sang, she saw her own image in the lake, and it seemed to her that the image was not just reflecting her voice, but also her shyness, her timidity, her fear of being judged by others. And as she looked at her image in the lake, she began to understand that she could not keep hiding behind the trees and the bushes forever. She had to find a way to overcome her shyness and use her beautiful voice to bring joy to herself and to others. So Echo took a deep breath and started singing louder. Her voice echoed through the forest and reached the ears of a young man who was walking nearby. The young man stopped and listened. He had never heard such a beautiful voice before, and he wanted to see who it was that was singing. So he walked towards the sound, and soon he came across the clearing. He saw Echo sitting on the stone, and he was mesmerized by her beauty and by the sound of her voice. Echo was so surprised that someone had found her that she tried to hide again, but the young man stopped her. He told her that he had heard her singing, and that he wanted to ask her to be his wife, because he believed that no one else had a voice as beautiful as hers. And Echo, who had never been asked to be anyone's wife before, was very happy. She agreed to marry him, and they lived happily ever after, and the forest was filled with the sound of her beautiful voice. The end. Friends, this story is about a girl named Echo, who was very shy and afraid to use her beautiful voice in public. She lived in a small village near a big forest, and she would always hide behind the trees or the bushes when people passed by, so that they could not hear her singing. One day, Echo was walking through the forest, and she came across a clearing. In the middle of the clearing was a small lake, and its surface was as still as a mirror. Echo sat down on a nearby stone and started singing, and as she sang, she saw her own image in the lake, and it seemed to her that the image was not just reflecting her voice, but also her shyness, her timidity, her fear of being judged by others. And as she looked at her image in the lake, she began to understand that she could not keep hiding behind the trees and the bushes forever. She had to find a way to overcome her shyness and use her beautiful voice to bring joy to herself and to others. So Echo took a deep breath and started singing louder. Her voice echoed through the forest and reached the ears of a young man who was walking nearby. The young man stopped and listened. He had never heard such a beautiful voice before, and he wanted to see who it was that was singing. So he walked towards the sound, and soon he came across the clearing. He saw Echo sitting on the stone, and he was mesmerized by her beauty and by the sound of her voice. Echo was so surprised that someone had found her that she tried to hide again, but the young man stopped her. He told her that he had heard her singing, and that he wanted to ask her to be his wife, because he believed that no one else had a voice as beautiful as hers. And Echo, who had never been asked to be anyone's wife before, was very happy. She agreed to marry him, and they lived happily ever after. And the forest was filled with the sound of her beautiful voice. This is the end. Now, I want to read you another story. It's called Narcissus. Once upon a time, in a faraway land, there was a handsome young man named Narcissus. He lived in a small cottage near a big forest, and he loved to spend his days hunting or fishing or just walking through the woods. One day, Narcissus was walking through the forest, and he came across a clearing. In the middle of the clearing was a small lake, and its surface was as still as a mirror. Narcissus walked towards the lake, and he saw his own reflection in the water. He saw a young man with handsome features, with curly hair and bright eyes, with a strong body and a graceful posture. And Narcissus thought to himself, "Who is this handsome young man? Why have I never seen him before?" And Narcissus continued to stare at his reflection, and he forgot all about the world around him. He did not hear the birds singing, or the flowers blooming, or the trees swaying. He only had eyes for his reflection in the lake. And Narcissus became so obsessed with his own reflection that he started to neglect his duties. He stopped working in the fields, and he spent all his time by the lake, admiring his own beauty. And one day, Narcissus's mother noticed that he was not working in the fields, and she went to his cottage to see what was wrong. She found him sitting by the window and staring into the forest. She asked him what he was doing, and Narcissus replied, "I am looking for a handsome young man whom I saw in the forest. I want to be his friend." and Narcissus's mother was very worried about him, because she knew that he was not talking about a real person, but about his own reflection in the lake. She went to the lake, and she saw Narcissus's reflection, and she understood that he had fallen in love with himself. And Narcissus's mother tried to pull him out of his obsession, but he would not listen to her. He continued to stare at his reflection, and he dreamed of being as handsome and beautiful as he saw himself in the lake. And Narcissus's mother was very sad for him, because she knew that he was wasting his life away. She had hoped that he would grow up to be a strong and brave man, but now she saw that he was becoming weak and vain and selfish, and Narcissus's mother could not bear to see her son destroy himself. So she went to the lake one night and overturned it with a magic spell. When Narcissus woke up the next morning and went to the lake, he saw that his reflection was gone. He searched for it, but he could not find it anywhere, and Narcissus was very upset because he thought that he had lost his best friend. He wandered through the forest, calling for his friend, but no one answered him. And Narcissus continued to call for his friend until he faded away into the silence of the woods. And that's the end of our story. So we have two stories today about Narcissus and Echo, and both of them are about a kind of self-obsession. They re-looking at themselves, either literally or metaphorically, and they so obsessed with themselves that they do unsee anything else around them. For example, in the story of Echo, she doesn't hear the birds singing, or the flowers blooming, or the trees swaying. And in the story of Narcissus, he does unhear his mother calling him, or the birds singing, or the flowers blooming, or the trees swaying. He only has eyes for his reflection in the lake. Both characters are so wrapped up in themselves that they can't see anything else around them, and that's why in the end they both fade away. Echo fades away into the silence of the woods, and Narcissus fades away into the silence of the lake. What do you think about these stories? Do you think they're interesting? Do you think they have a lesson for us? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please write them down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed these stories, please give us a like and subscribe for more content. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and I'll see you next time. Bye. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of amber and rose, a lone figure stood at the edge of the world. His name was Daedalus, a craftsman, an engineer, but most importantly, a father. In his arms, he held the most precious creation of his life, not a statue or a painting, but his son, Icarus. For 18 years, Daedalus had dedicated his life to one thing: escaping the labyrinth. Not that anyone could blame him. Being trapped within its twisting corridors was no picnic, but for him, being trapped wasn't just a physical confinement. It was a torment to his soul. He saw the monster grow stronger with each passing day, feeding on the despair of those who entered and never emerged. But in his son's eyes, he saw hope. In those innocent eyes, he saw a future where the sun shone brighter, where laughter echoed freely, and where the sea breeze carried the scent of freedom. Now, looking out at the endless expanse of the ocean, Daedalus knew their escape would begin there. With trembling hands, he adjusted his son's blanket, ensuring he was comfortable. His heart ached at the thought of what lay ahead, but the thought of his son growing up in captivity tore him apart. "My boy," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion, "we're going on an adventure." Icarus stirred, his eyes fluttering open like the petals of a flower reaching for the sun. "An adventure," he echoed, his voice filled with wonder. Daedalus nodded, unable to speak. The weight of their fate pressed down on them, but in that moment, all he saw was the wonder in his son's eyes. So they waited. waited for the perfect moment when the moon would cloak them in darkness and the wind would become their ally. When night fell, casting its velvety cloak over the land, Daedalus and Icarus slipped away from the labyrinth. The cool night air wrapped around them as they walked, a comforting presence in the darkness. Daedalus clutched his bag tightly, his heart pounding in his chest. Inside that bag were the tools that represented their only chance, the wings he had spent countless nights crafting in secret. They were magnificent, a testament to his skill and desperation. 2 large wings, strong and light, made from feathers and linen, held together by the strongest glue he could make. These wings were their ticket to freedom, but they were also their most dangerous risk. If it didn't work, if they couldn't fly, then, well, he didn't want to think about it. The beach was deserted under the moonlight, a vast expanse of silver and shadow. The waves whispered secrets to the shore, secrets of distant lands and dreams beyond the horizon. As they reached the water's edge, Daedalus helped his son take off his blanket. The cool sand between their toes, a reminder of the journey they had come so far. And now the time had come for the greatest adventure of their lives. With a deep breath, Daedalus unfolded the wings, their size almost overwhelming. He carefully strapped them to his son's shoulders, making sure everything was secure. Then he turned to help Icarus with his own wings. The leather straps bit into his shoulders, but it was a pain he welcomed. This hurt meant hope, meant freedom. When they were ready, Daedalus took his son's hand, his fingers intertwined with those small, trusting ones. "Are you scared, my boy?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Icarus looked at him, his eyes shining with determination. "No," he said, and Daedalus believed him. They started walking into the water, the waves lapping at their feet. The water was cold, but it invigorated them, preparing them for what lay ahead. Soon the water was up to their knees, then their waists. Daedalus felt a surge of fear, but he pushed it down. There was no turning back now. And then they were in too deep for running, for turning back. The water reached their necks, enveloping them in its icy embrace. Daedalus closed his eyes, bracing himself. This was it. He had faith in his wings, in his creation, but he couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. Would it be enough? Suddenly, his son tugged on his hand, his eyes wide with excitement. "Look, Papa, the wind is helping me," he cried. Daedalus opened his eyes and gasped. A gentle breeze was filling the wings, lifting them higher and higher. It was so beautiful. With a final push, they were free of the water, their wings soaring high above the waves. Daedalus looked down at the beach, at the place they had started their journey. It seemed so tiny from up here, so insignificant. He had dreamed of this moment for so long, and now it was real. They were flying. They glided over the ocean, the wind whispering secrets in their ears. The waves were their companions as they danced across the water. The moon and stars twinkled above, as if celebrating their freedom. The sky was vast and limitless, just like the love a father had for his son. As the first rays of sunlight touched their wings, Icarus let out a joyous laugh. The feathers were warm, not from the sun, but from the magic that bound them together, the magic of their hope, their dreams, their freedom. Daedalus smiled, his heart overflowing with love and pride. In that moment, he knew everything he had done, everything he had endured, had been worth it. Icarus looked at his father, his face radiant with happiness. "We're free, Papa," he shouted, his voice carried by the wind, and indeed they were. Free from the shadows of the past, free from the chains that had held them back, free to embrace the endless possibilities that lay ahead. They flew for what seemed like hours, but in reality was only a few minutes. Yet in those few minutes, they created a lifetime of memories, memories that would sustain them through the challenges that lay ahead. As the sun began its ascent, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, Daedalus knew it was time to find somewhere to hide. He looked around and spotted a cave nestled at the foot of a cliff. With a gentle maneuver, he guided Icarus towards the opening, shielding him from the curious gaze of the rising sun. Inside the cave, it was cool and dark, a welcome respite from the warmth of the sun outside. Daedalus helped his son out of the water, his heart swelling with love and exhaustion. Together they wrung out their clothes, the sound of dripping water echoing in the stillness of the cave. When they were a little drier, Daedalus took off his son's wings, folding them with reverence. Each feather, each strap, each line of linen was a testament to their journey, their struggles, their triumphs. He kept them close, not just because they were irreplaceable, but because they were a symbol of their bond. A bond forged in the fires of adversity, tempered by the winds of freedom. As the first rays of sunlight filtered through the cracks in the cave, illuminating particles of dust dancing in the air, Daedalus looked at Icarus. His son was fast asleep, his face peaceful and serene. The image was burned into Daedalus's memory, a treasure he would hold close for the rest of his life. He watched over his sleeping son, his heart filled with a mix of emotions, fear, pride, love. He was afraid of what might lie ahead, of the challenges, of the dangers, but mostly he was afraid of losing his son. He had already lost so much, his freedom, his peace, his very hope. He couldn't bear the thought of losing Icarus to pit. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, bathing the cave in a golden glow, he knew he had done everything he could for now. All he could do was trust his son, trust in the strength of his spirit, trust in the bond that connected them. So Daedalus settled down beside Icarus, wrapping his arms around his sleeping son. He closed his eyes, letting the warmth of the sun and the love for his son envelop him. In that moment, he knew he was exactly where he was supposed to be, with the person he loved the most in the world. Under the watchful gaze of the sun and the embrace of the earth, they would face whatever came next, together. As the day wore on, the sun climbing higher and higher in the sky, Daedalus felt a sense of calm wash over him. He knew they had made it. They had escaped the labyrinth. They had flown across the sea. They were free. But as the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the cave floor, a sense of foreboding crept into Daedalus's heart. He knew their troubles weren't over. They had escaped one prison only to find themselves in another, trapped by the limitations of their strength, their resources, their resolve. Looking down at his sleeping son, Daedalus felt a surge of determination. He may be tired, but Icarus needed him now more than ever. He gently nudged his son, rousing him from his slumber. "My boy," he whispered, his voice hoarse with fatigue, "it's time to wake up." Icarus stirred, his eyes fluttering open like a startled fawn. He looked up at his father, confusion clouding his features. "What's wrong, Papa?" he asked, his voice thick with sleep. Daedalus forced a smile, trying to convey the gravity of the situation without waking his son's fears. "It's time for us to start our new adventure," he said, hoping his tone conveyed the excitement he wanted to inspire. But as Icarus began to stir, the cave grew darker, the air thicker, the shadows deeper. And in that darkening cave, as the sun dipped below the horizon, taking its light and warmth with it, Daedalus and Icarus faced their new reality together. So let's get started with story 12. Hestia was a goddess, but not a very well-known one, which isn't surprising considering that she rarely ever had any adventures. You see, Hestia was the goddess of the hearth, the small, cozy fire inside of people's homes that kept them warm, cooked their food, and made their houses feel like a sanctuary. She wasn't a loud, boisterous goddess, nor was she an evil one either. She was quiet and gentle, and she liked it that way. She liked tending to her little fire and watching over mortals as they went about their daily lives. Sometimes they would notice her and give her little offerings of flowers or song, and she cherished those moments. But more often than not, they wouldn't even realize she was there, which made her very sad, because she wanted to be noticed, to be appreciated for all the work that she did. But what could she do? She tried making her fire bigger and brighter, hoping that would make people take notice. But there were only so many flowers and songs to go around, and after a while, even those stopped coming. So she just ended up retreating into herself more and more until the only time she really left her temple was to visit her siblings, and even then, she only saw them when they came to her temple. For she didn't want to disturb their godly duties by taking up too much of their time. No, she knew how important what they did was. She just wished that someone, anyone, would come to her temple and give her a little bit of attention. Was that too much to ask? One day, though, she got her wish, except it wasn't exactly how she expected. You see, this particular day started out like every other day. The sun rose, the birds sang, and people got on with their lives. But as the day wore on, the sky grew darker and the wind grew colder. By the time the sun began its descent, the entire world was in turmoil. People ran for cover as the first fat raindrops fell from the sky, but there was nowhere for them to go. Their houses were flimsy and wouldn't keep them dry for long, and the trees offered no respite from the wind and the rain. Everything was soaked within minutes, and with the temperature dropping fast, it didn't take long for hypothermia to set in. Now, most people don't know this, but when it rains, the river rises. And since most rivers flow directly through towns and cities, this means that the water eventually floods everything. Whole streets became impassable, forcing people to abandon their homes and flee to higher ground. All the while, the rain continued to fall, and the wind continued to blow, determined to destroy everything in sight. It was the worst storm anyone could remember, and if it didn't stop soon, everyone would die. As such, people began praying to the gods for help. They prayed to Zeus and Hera for protection, to Hades and Persephone for a swift death, and to Poseidon for calm seas. But of all the gods, there was one they forgot to pray to, the goddess of the hearth, the one who could have saved them from the beginning. You see, Hestia's temple was on top of a hill overlooking the entire city, and as the floodwaters rose, people began making their way towards it, desperate for shelter. At first, Hestia was scared, unsure of what to do. But when she saw the pain and suffering these mortals were going through, something inside of her snapped. This was her chance to prove herself, to show the world that she was more than just a minor goddess. She was the goddess of the hearth, and that meant she was also the goddess of home and family. She was the embodiment of warmth and safety, and she was going to use that power to save as many people as she possibly could. With that, Hestia went to work, gathering dry wood and starting a massive fire in her hearth. Then, using her godly powers, she expanded it until it was big enough to shield an entire city block from the storm. People poured into her temple, seeking refuge from the raging storm outside. And she welcomed them all, tending to their wounds and making sure they had food and water. As the storm raged outside, Hestia's fire burned bright, casting dancing shadows on the walls and keeping everyone warm and safe. It was the best party anyone could remember, filled with singing and dancing and laughter. And Hestia basked in the joy of her people, reveling in their gratitude and appreciation. Finally, she was being noticed. Finally, she was being appreciated. Finally, she mattered. But then the unthinkable happened. After what felt like an eternity, the storm outside began to calm down. The rain slowly turned to a drizzle. The wind died down to a gentle breeze, and the clouds parted, revealing a bright blue sky. As the last of the rain fell, people began emerging from Hestia's temple, blinking in the sudden sunlight. They looked around at the damage that had been done, at the debris littering the ground and the flooded streets. But they weren't scared, not anymore. They had survived the worst of the storm, and that was thanks to Hestia and her fire. But before they could thank her properly, she was already gone. All that remained was her fire, still burning bright, casting dancing shadows on the walls. As the people began cleaning up the mess, they couldn't help but smile. They had lost so much, yet they had also gained something new. A newfound appreciation for the quiet, gentle goddess of the hearth. From that day forward, Hestia was never forgotten. People made regular offerings to her, just to show their appreciation for all that she did. And whenever a new house was built, they made sure to build a proper hearth in the center of it, because they knew that that's where Hestia would be waiting. She might be a minor goddess, but that didn't mean she wasn't important. In fact, it was quite the opposite. She was a reminder that even the smallest flame can cast the brightest light, and that sometimes it's the quietest voices that have the most to say. The end. So that was story 12. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe for more. Also, if you have a story idea you'd like to see me tell, put it in the comments below, because you never know, I just might pick it next. Anyway, I'm the host. And until next time, stay safe, stay creative, and I will see you in my next video. Alright, it's story time. And now, the stories of the gods, heroes, and mysteries of Greece fade into silence. The myths remain eternal, but tonight they have guided you into peace. As you rest, remember that these stories are always here for you to bring calm, wonder, and gentle dreams. If you enjoyed tonight's journey, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, so you'll always have a place to return whenever you need calm, relaxation, and timeless myths to fall asleep to. Good night, sleep well, and may the gods of old watch over your dreams. Now, let's begin. In the heart of Athens, nestled amidst olive groves and ancient stones, there lived a sculptor named Pythias. He was renowned throughout the city for his skill crafting figures of gods and heroes from marble and bronze. But Pythias wasn't content with earthly renown. His heart ached with a longing for immortality, for his name to echo through the ages. One day, driven by this desire, he left Athens. After a long journey, he arrived at the Oracle of Delphi, where the great Pythia received her visions from the gods. There, amidst the sacred tripod and billowing vapors, Pythias approached the oracle and asked, "Oh, divine Pythia, I am but a humble sculptor. My hands create fleeting shadows on the earth, destined to be forgotten with the passing seasons. Grant me immortality through your prophecy. Tell me, which god shall I sculpt that my name might live on through the ages." The vapors swirled around the oracle, and when they cleared, she spoke in a voice echoing with otherworldly wisdom. "You seek immortality through the deathless gods. Yet who among them is without rival, without equal, the only one who reigns supreme in all of the cosmos?" Pythias pondered this riddle as he made his way back to Athens. Days turned into weeks, and still he pondered the oracle's cryptic words. Who was this supreme god? Was it Zeus, who ruled the heavens, yet had brothers and sisters? Was it Poseidon, who shook the earth with his might? Or Hades, who claimed the souls of the departed? One evening, as Pythias sat in his garden, lost in thought, he heard the soft chirp of a cricket. It was the smallest of creatures, yet its song seemed to hold a strange power over him. Suddenly, he understood. The oracle had not spoken of a god, but of a concept, of the idea of timelessness. For what is more eternal than time itself? What god or hero remains unchanged by the relentless march of the seasons? Only time is truly immortal. With this revelation, Pythias set aside his tools. He would not sculpt a god, for he realized that no mortal hand could capture the essence of eternity. Instead, he began to sculpt time. With each stroke of his chisel, he brought to life a figure that transcended the limitations of his mortal craft. Time, his wings spread wide, seemed to encompass all of eternity. When his work was complete, Pythias stood back and gazed upon his masterpiece. In that moment, he understood that his name would indeed echo through the ages, not because he had captured a god in stone, but because he had dared to sculpt eternity itself. And so it was that Pythias, the humble sculptor, achieved immortality, not in the way he had originally envisioned, but in a far greater and more profound way. For who can escape the relentless march of time? Who can conquer death? But the one who conquers time, that is the ultimate triumph. And as we ponder the tales of gods and heroes, let us remember the simple truth that immortality can be found not just in marble or bronze, but in the very essence of existence, in the grand tapestry of time itself. Now, if you found yourself captivated by the timeless tales of Pythias, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. Here we celebrate storytelling and invite you to share your own stories. So, if you ever wanted to tell a story that will echo through the ages like Pythias' name did, then come share your stories on our channel. Who knows, you might just find your own path to immortality. And as we part ways for now, remember the words of the wise. A good story has the power to transport us to another realm, where the boundaries of reality are blurred and the impossible becomes possible. Until next time, may your own stories inspire and captivate all who listen. Thank you.
Did you know that the otherworldly statues guarding the Giza Plateau have been silently watching over us for nearly 5,000 years? And they're not alone. Over 3 million hieroglyphs riddle the walls of Egyptian tombs, each stroke a secret whispered across millennia. And then there are the pyramids themselves, eternal enigmas pointing towards the heavens, defying even modern engineering marvels. One of the world's greatest civilizations rose from the sands of the Nile over 5,000 years ago, crafting wonders that still defy explanation today. Ancient Egypt wasn't just about pyramids and pharaohs. It was a civilization of secrets, sacred rituals, and a deep obsession with the afterlife. Today we embark on an extraordinary journey back in time, unearthing the hidden truths, myths and mysteries that continue to captivate us about ancient Egypt. Join us as we unravel the enigma of these colossal sentinels. We delve into the depths of their cryptic tombs and decipher the secrets embedded in the very fabric of this lost world. Are you ready to uncover the enigma of ancient Egypt? And let's dive in. The majestic River Nile, the cradle of ancient Egyptian civilization, held within its fertile banks the key to the kingdom's prosperity. Every year, the Nile would overflow, leaving behind nutrient-rich silt that transformed the land into a bountiful landscape. The annual flooding of the Nile was not just a source of fertility, but also a life-giving force that sustained the kingdom and influenced the very core of Egyptian beliefs. For the Egyptians, the Nile was personified as a deity, and its predictable inundations were seen as divine gifts. They believed that the Nile's bounty was a direct result of the pharaoh's closeness to the gods. When the river flowed generously, it was a sign of the pharaoh's divine favor and the kingdom's prosperity. Conversely, if the floods were insufficient or excessive, it was seen as a divine reprimand, a message from the gods that something was amiss. This intimate connection between the Nile and the pharaoh led to a complex system of rituals and ceremonies. Each year, the pharaohs celebrated the rising of the Nile with festivities and offerings to the gods, ensuring the continuation of the river's life-giving flow. They built massive dams and irrigation systems to control the water, channeling it to sustain crops and sustain the kingdom's growth. In essence, the ancient Egyptians lived in harmony with the rhythms of the Nile, recognizing both its life-giving powers and its capricious nature. The river was not just a geographical feature, but a living, breathing entity that shaped their beliefs, their society, and their destiny. Now let's rewind the clock to around 3100 BC in the northeastern corner of Africa, a land where the River Nile met the Mediterranean, a place we now call Egypt. At this time, Egypt wasn't a united kingdom. Instead, it was divided into several small regions along the Nile. Then came Narmer, a ruler from the south who set out on a journey to unite these fragmented lands. He marched north with his army, battling rival chieftains and forging alliances until he reached the northernmost point of the known world at that time. With the union complete, he was hailed as the first pharaoh, signifying the birth of a new era in Egyptian history. This moment marked the beginning of the early dynastic period, a time when the foundations of Egyptian civilization were laid. The newly unified kingdom looked to its pharaohs as divine rulers, setting the stage for centuries of pharaonic rule. As the dynasties passed down the crown, each pharaoh was considered a successor to Narmer, forming a lineage of god-kings that would shape the course of Egyptian history. In the Old Kingdom, which lasted from roughly 2686 to 2181 BC, Egypt reached new heights of prosperity. During this period, the Giza Plateau came alive with monumental construction projects. Among them, the Great Pyramid of Giza, testament to human ingenuity and the unfathomable resources commanded by the pharaohs. This awe-inspiring structure, originally named the Monument of Khufu, served as the eternal resting place for Pharaoh Khufu. The pyramid's sheer size, standing as the tallest man-made structure for over 3,800 years, was a reflection of the pharaoh's divine status. But it was much more than a tomb. It was built with precision and care. The pyramid's internal chambers and passageways hinted at a cosmic connection, aligning with celestial bodies in a celestial ballet of astronomical significance. For the Egyptians, death was not an ending, but a transition. And the pyramids, with their intricate designs, were cosmic stairways for the soul's journey. Khufu's pyramid, buried under the sands of time, continues to whisper tales of a civilization that dared to dream big and build even bigger. However, the Old Kingdom was not destined to last. Political instability and economic challenges led to the collapse of central authority, plunging Egypt into a period known as the First Intermediate Period. As the Old Kingdom waned, Egypt found itself on the brink of transformation during the Middle Kingdom. Spanning from 2055 to 1650 BC, the nation was reunited under Mentuhotep II, initiating a golden age of art, literature, and centralized power. During this period, Egypt's cultural influence flourished. Literature thrived with works like the Cairo Story, tales of everyday life that offered a glimpse into the hearts and minds of ancient Egyptians. The arts flourished with exquisite paintings and sculptures adorning tombs and temples, capturing the essence of a civilization at its zenith. However, the seeds of change were already being sown. Internal conflicts and external pressures gradually eroded the kingdom's stability, leading to the Second Intermediate Period. Yet amidst these turbulent times, Ged witnessed the emergence of formidable rulers like Kamose and Amos I. who successfully drove out the Hyksos, foreign rulers who had infiltrated Thebes. This victory marked a pivotal moment, clearing the path for Egypt to enter its most powerful era, the New Kingdom. From 1543 to 1292 BC, the New Kingdom was a golden age for Egypt, known for its military prowess, territorial expansion, and cultural achievements. During this era, Egypt's borders stretched from the Levant in the northeast to Nubia in the south. Powerful pharaohs like Thutmose III and Hatshepsut expanded the empire through trade and military campaigns, bringing immense wealth and prestige to the kingdom. Hatshepsut, one of history's most prominent female rulers, defied gender norms and ruled as a male pharaoh, leaving behind a legacy of architectural marvels like the mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari. Another iconic figure of this era was Ramses II, often regarded as the greatest pharaoh of all time. His reign from 1279 to 1213 BC was marked by monumental constructions such as the Ramesseum, its grand mortuary temple, and the Abu Simbel, twin temples carved into a mountainside. Ramses II's enduring image, the imposing seated colossus at Abu Simbel, is a testament to his lasting legacy. The late New Kingdom also saw the rise of Akhenaten, who introduced a revolutionary concept, the worship of Aten, the sun disk, as the supreme god. This marked the first known instance of monotheism in recorded history. Akhenaten's wife, Nefertiti, immortalized in the famous bust, now housed in Berlin, became an iconic symbol of beauty and grace. Their daughter, Ankhesenamun, attempted to wed the Hittite king to secure an alliance against the encroaching sea peoples. But the New Kingdom's troubles were compounded by the mysterious death of Tutankhamun, Akhenaten's successor, the young age of 19. The discovery of his nearly intact tomb by Howard Carter in 1922 captivated the world and provided invaluable insights into this enigmatic era. Despite its glories, the New Kingdom eventually succumbed to internal strife and external pressures, including attacks by the mysterious sea peoples. This decline marked the beginning of the Third Intermediate Period, a time of fragmentation and foreign rule. During the Third Intermediate Period, Egypt came under the control of foreign powers, starting with the Assyrians followed by the Persians. The Libyans briefly reasserted control under the 22nd dynasty, but Egypt's fate was ultimately intertwined with the rise of the New Kingdom. However, the era of foreign domination was destined to end with the arrival of Alexander the Great. Following the Persian conquest, Egypt became part of the Ptolemaic Kingdom, a Hellenistic dynasty founded by Ptolemy I, one of Alexander's generals. This period marked a significant cultural fusion as Greek and Egyptian influences intertwined. The most renowned ruler of this era was Cleopatra VII, famed for her intelligence, political acumen, and tragic romance with Roman general Julius Caesar. After Caesar's assassination, Cleopatra formed an alliance with Mark Antony, a Roman triumvir. However, their partnership led to a diplomatic crisis between Rome and Octavian, Caesar's adopted son, who sought to expand his power. Fearing repercussions, Cleopatra and Mark Antony took their own lives, ending the Ptolemaic dynasty and marking the end of ancient Egypt's independence. Egypt became a province of Rome, ushering in a new chapter in its long and storied history. But the story doesn't end here. The mysteries of ancient Egypt continue to captivate us. From the enigmatic pyramids to the undeciphered riddles of the past, there's still so much to uncover. What intrigues you the most about ancient Egypt? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more journeys through time. Thank you for joining us today. Till next time, keep exploring the past and stay curious. The story of ancient Egypt is usually told as one of Pharaoh's pyramids and mummies, a rich tapestry of kings, queens, and monuments, some built to outlast the test of time. But what if there are chapters missing from this well-known tale? What if there's more to the land of the pharaohs than meets the eye? They say history is written by the victors, but in Egypt, it seems history was carved in stone and then buried beneath centuries of silence. Welcome to a world of towering pyramids and golden tombs. But look closer, and you'll find secrets Egypt doesn't want you to know. Join me as we uncover them one by one. First up, let's tackle a mystery that has both thrilled and infuriated researchers: the lost labyrinth of Hawara. You might wonder, why would a labyrinth be so perplexing? Well, imagine a vast underground maze beneath the desert sands, hiding passages over 30 meters deep. It's a subterranean city, boasting around 3,000 rooms filled with sarcophagi, each one uniquely designed. That's enough space to fit 40,000 mummies inside. How did this happen? Archaeologists uncovered these tunnels during excavations in the late 19th century, only to be stunned by the sheer scale of the place. The thing is, mainstream history has no answer for it. It wasn't mentioned in any records or depicted in artwork like other burial grounds. Even its entrance is a mystery, concealed beneath a rubbish dump until stumbled upon by accident. This underground marvel was carved between 2000 BC and 1600 BC, matching the reign of Amenhotep III. But nobody knows why such a grand labyrinth was needed, or where it got its colossal wealth to be built. How did this hidden wonder stay secret for so long? Well, it was abandoned around 1500 BC and left to the darkness as Egypt descended into turmoil. Over time, its location was forgotten, turning it into a tomb of untold stories. For centuries, treasure hunters seeking fortune had heard rumors of this underground labyrinth, leading to daring descents. They discovered broken statues depicting gods and sphinxes, along with strange symbols that seemed to guide the visitor's path. However, these cryptic carvings remain undeciphered, leaving many to speculate about their meaning. This subterranean labyrinth is so vast that it raises questions about what else might lie within its chambers. Perhaps there are blueprints, knowledge, and even a hidden history waiting to be uncovered. But why does Egypt keep it hidden? Is it protecting a relic of the past or keeping something buried forever? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Now let's unravel the enigma of the Great Sphinx, standing guard over the Giza Plateau for millennia. Its weathered visage tells a tale as old as time. But recent findings have revealed that the Sphinx's story is far from static. Its tangled history has led to theories that challenge conventional history. According to official accounts, the Sphinx was built by Pharaoh Khafre, succeeding the Great Pyramid and serving as his eternal resting place. However, geological clues tell a different story. Analysis of the erosion patterns on its surface indicates that the Sphinx has stood the test of time for over 7,000 years. That's thousands of years before the rise of dynastic Egypt. How can this be possible? The official narrative aligns the Sphinx's construction with Khafre's reign. It's placing it around 2500 BC, but evidence suggests it could have been crafted during the 12th dynasty. In fact, some experts theorize it was built as early as 4500 BC, making it far older than the pharaohs themselves. This discrepancy raises profound questions. Does it point to a lost pre-dynastic civilization, or is there evidence of a much more advanced past? Some believe that the Sphinx was meticulously planned to align with the stars, serving as an astronomical clock to track the cycles of the universe. This would require advanced knowledge and technology far beyond what's typically associated with early human societies. Others suggest that the Sphinx was part of a larger network of megalithic structures, connected to sites like Stonehenge and the Scottish pyramids, forming a prehistoric system of knowledge and communication. If this is true, it challenges the very foundation of our understanding of ancient Egypt and human history. Now let's turn our attention to the Great Pyramid of Giza, the oldest and largest of the three iconic structures. While the pyramid's exterior grandeur captivates visitors from around the globe, it's what lies beneath its colossal form that truly intrigues researchers. Despite countless studies and investigations, the pyramid's interior holds secrets close to its core. It's known to have three main chambers, including the King's Chamber, where the legendary pharaoh Khufu is believed to rest. But there are also several air shafts that lead into the depths of the earth. These shafts, once thought to be ventilation shafts, now seem to have a more profound purpose. Research suggests that they were intentionally sealed before the pyramid was completed. But why? Did they hold treasures or artifacts too valuable to be left behind? Or were they concealing something even more enigmatic? In 2017, scans using thermal imaging technology revealed two previously unknown voids within the pyramid. These voids, located near the King's Chamber, have sparked intense curiosity and debate. Some believe they could contain undiscovered chambers or passages leading to secret chambers. What secrets might they hold? Are they perhaps containing ancient texts or objects that challenge our historical timeline? This untouched realm beneath the pyramid remains largely unexplored, offering a tantalizing glimpse into the past. But why hasn't it been opened? Is it to protect the sanctity of the site, or to safeguard potential discoveries from those who would exploit them? As researchers continue to probe the pyramid's mysteries, we can only wonder what other secrets lie dormant within its ancient walls. Maybe there are more stories waiting to be told. The legacy of the Black Pharaohs is a testament to their power and cultural richness. Kings like Pianki and Taharka ruled with wisdom and strength, uniting the kingdoms of Nubia and Egypt. Yet their stories have been overshadowed by the pharaohs of the north. This erasure was deliberate, aiming to minimize the Nubian influence and heritage. Their monuments were defaced or destroyed, and their accomplishments were belittled. Why? It was a way to control narratives and assert dominance. By downplaying the achievements of the Black Pharaohs, the northern elite sought to maintain their supremacy and marginalize Nubian contributions to Egyptian civilization. But what about the ancient Egyptians and electricity? The idea that ancient Egyptians harnessed electricity is often dismissed as a fringe theory, but the evidence is intriguing. One piece of evidence is the Dendera light, a carved depiction in Hathor's temple that shows a woman holding a device that bears a striking resemblance to a modern light bulb. The device has a bulbous base, a central shaft, and a coiled wire coming out of it, resembling the filament of a light bulb. This depiction challenges the conventional timeline of electrical discovery, pushing it back thousands of years. Mainstream archaeologists argue that the carving is nothing more than a stylized representation of a lotus bud or a flame. However, proponents of the electric Egypt theory point to the intricate details of the carving, including the depiction of electrical cords and energy coils. They argue that such precision in depicting a simple flame is highly unlikely. The existence of the Dendera light raises fundamental questions about what other technological advancements the ancient Egyptians may have possessed. Did they have a deeper understanding of the natural world? Did they harness the power of electricity for various purposes? The lack of concrete evidence and the reluctance of the archaeological community to explore this theory leave many questions unanswered. Were the ancient Egyptians more scientifically advanced than we realize? Did they possess knowledge of electricity and other technologies that have been lost to time? These questions continue to spark debate and speculation, challenging our understanding of ancient civilizations. Let's shift our focus to the enigmatic Pharaoh Akhenaten, who ruled over Egypt from 1353 to 1336 BC. His unique appearance has given rise to various theories and speculations. Akhenaten had an elongated skull, a high forehead, and an unusual slender physique, which has led many to question his origins. Some believe that Akhenaten had extraterrestrial ancestry, suggesting that he may have been the offspring of alien beings who visited ancient Egypt. This theory is based on his distinctive physical features, which seem to deviate from the typical characteristics of ancient Egyptians. Proponents of the alien theory argue that Akhenaten's elongated skull and almond-shaped eyes are reminiscent of certain extraterrestrial depictions in ancient art. They also point to his slim build and delicate features as evidence of a different genetic lineage. However, mainstream historians attribute Akhenaten's unusual appearance to a variety of factors. His elongated skull could be the result of cranial deformation, a practice common in many ancient cultures to alter the shape of the head. His slender physique might be due to a genetic anomaly or a condition caused by inbreeding within the royal family. While the alien theory captures the imagination, there is no concrete evidence to support it. Akhenaten's appearance, though striking, can be explained by natural variations and cultural practices of the time. It's important to approach such theories with a healthy dose of skepticism and to rely on evidence-based analysis when exploring historical figures. Let's finally discuss the ancient Egyptian curse, magic, and spells. Texts like the Book of Thoth contain powerful incantations and rituals that were believed to unlock hidden knowledge and supernatural abilities. But these mystical writings were not mere tales of fantasy. They were an integral part of ancient Egyptian life. The Book of Thoth, one of the most significant examples, is said to contain spells that could grant its readers immense power and wisdom. However, it's shrouded in mystery and legend. The book is believed to have been written in hieroglyphic script and passed down through generations of Egyptian priests. It's said to have been hidden by the gods themselves to prevent its knowledge from being misused. Unfortunately, the original copy is now lost, with only fragments and copies of copies remaining. Despite its elusive nature, the Book of Thoth and other spell books played a vital role in ancient Egyptian society. They were used for various purposes, including protecting against evil spirits, ensuring fertility, and invoking the blessings of the gods. Ancient Egyptians believed that the world was full of spiritual forces, and that these spells could help them navigate and interact with the supernatural realm. These spells were not merely words written on papyrus. They were believed to possess real power, capable of influencing the course of events. And finally, let's delve into the enigma of the sunken city beneath the Nile River. This hidden metropolis holds clues to Egypt's rich history, but it's a realm that remains largely unexplored. Satellite imagery and underwater explorations have revealed the outlines of buildings and structures submerged beneath the river's surface. These discoveries suggest that a significant settlement once thrived in this area, but how did it end up under the Nile? Legend speaks of a great flood that may have overwhelmed the city, forcing its inhabitants to abandon their homes and seek higher ground. This cataclysmic event could have been triggered by a surge in the Nile's water levels, possibly caused by heavy rainfall or a seismic event. As the floodwaters receded, the city found itself beneath the surface, becoming a relic of the past. Is this the lost city of Heracleion, once a bustling port and center of trade? Or are we uncovering a civilization even older, potentially dating back to the time of Atlantis? We may never know. What do you think? Do these hidden truths shed new light on ancient Egypt? Which discoveries fascinated you the most? Share your thoughts and join the conversation. Don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on our latest videos. Thanks for watching. We've all heard the story of the Great Pyramid of Giza was built as a tomb for Pharaoh Khufu, but here's the problem: no mummy was ever found inside, no treasure, no inscriptions, nothing. Just empty chambers and a level of architectural precision modern engineers still can't replicate. So what were they really built for? Let's start with the math. Did you know the Great Pyramid encodes pi, the golden ratio, and the exact dimensions of Earth? That's not a coincidence. Then there's the strange electromagnetic energy detected by scientists at the pyramid's apex. Why would a tomb emit energy? Add to that the evidence of water erosion around the Sphinx, which suggests these structures are over 10,000 years old, built long before the Egyptians we know of even existed. And if that's not enough, some ancient texts claim the pyramids were already there when the pharaohs arrived. Could the pyramids be the legacy of a forgotten civilization with advanced knowledge, maybe even lost technology? Maybe they weren't built for the dead at all, but power plants, stargates, or vibrational healing centers. The alignments with Orion's belt, the magnetic granite, the absence of burial remains, it all points to one thing: we have been told only part of the story. What if the pyramids weren't built for the dead but for the living, as energy hubs or consciousness amplifiers? Let that sink in, because the past isn't just mysterious, it's powerful. Here's what you need to know about the real pyramids. We typically think of the pyramids as tombs. The idea is straightforward. A pharaoh dies, he's mummified, placed in a sarcophagus, and buried deep underground in a secret chamber accessible only to priests. In this case, it would be King Khufu, ruler of Egypt from 2600 to 2700 BCE, buried in the largest pyramid, the Great Pyramid of Giza. But here's where things get weird. Archaeologists have explored every nook and cranny of these chambers and passages, searching with modern technology, X-rays, infrared cameras, robots. They've even drilled into the bedrock underneath the pyramid. No remains have been found anywhere. No sarcophagus, no trace of a burial. The Great Pyramid is empty. It's as if the king simply vanished without a trace. How can a structure so massive and meticulously designed serve no purpose? And how can its builders achieve such precise angles, such perfectly cut stones without the aid of modern tools? The math behind the pyramids is pure genius. The base of the Great Pyramid is 756 feet, which is 226 multiplied by 3.333. This is close to the actual value of pi, 3.14159. The ratio between the base and the height of the Great Pyramid is very close to the golden ratio, 1.618. The square root of 5, 2.236. Multiplied by 3 gives us 6.78. The number of steps leading up the pyramid is 28. and 6.78 times 28 equals 190, which is close to the number of days in the solar year. These ratios and alignments are not accidental. Someone understood the divine geometry of the universe and encoded it into the pyramids. They wanted to demonstrate that the Earth itself is a living organism made of the same elements and laws as the cosmos. They saw the patterns and relationships of the universe and built the pyramids to reflect them. They believed the Earth was a vessel, a temple where human consciousness could connect with the divine. But why would a civilization that understood physics and geometry build a tomb? For a culture obsessed with precision, the idea of the afterlife didn't seem to matter. Consider this. A typical Egyptian tomb looks like an upside-down t-shirt, a small room at the top where the body is placed, and a shaft for the soul to ascend. The royal tombs are more elaborate, often with multiple shafts leading in different directions. But what about the Great Pyramid? It has no shafts, no air vents, no windows. It's a solid box with 3 small chambers and 5 passages. Even the central lobby is smaller than a single mastaba. Why put such effort into a structure that serves no purpose? Why encode pi, the golden ratio, and the dimensions of the Earth into a meaningless tomb? Here's another intriguing detail. According to satellite data, the pyramid's true shape is not a pyramid at all, but a tetrahedron. Its 4 faces form a perfect tetrahedral shape, aligning with the 4 directions of the compass. The shift in shape suggests something more, something beyond burial rituals. Think of the tetrahedral shape as a giant energy amplifier, focusing cosmic vibrations at the apex. Why would ancient builders amplify energy unless they intended to use it? And what's with the location? The Giza Plateau is rich with sacred geometry. Khafre's pyramid aligns perfectly with the galactic center, as if it's pointing to the heart of the Milky Way. Menkare's pyramid marks the cardinal directions: north, east, south, and west. And the Sphinx gazes towards the rising sun on the equinoxes, marking the cycle of death and rebirth. This wasn't random. The Egyptians believed the Earth was surrounded by a vast ocean of energy, and they wanted to tap into it. They chose the Giza Plateau because it was a nexus of cosmic energy. The magnetic field of the Earth funneled through this area, making it ideal for energy work. In fact, the Egyptians built their temples and pyramids along ley lines, invisible energy pathways that crisscross the planet. They knew that at certain locations the energy of the Earth was particularly strong, and they wanted to harness it. Let's take a closer look at the pyramids themselves. Most people assume they're tombs, but think about what we actually know. The outer casing of the Great Pyramid once glistened with white limestone, reflecting sunlight from miles away. It was meant to be seen, admired, and accessed. Look at the size of the stones near the top. They're much smaller, lightweight limestone blocks, easy to transport and lift. Yet the Egyptians somehow managed to make them perfectly smooth, polished, and flat. They were masters of stonework, able to cut and shape the hardest materials into flawless blocks. In fact, the entire construction of the pyramids defies explanation. How did they move the stones? How did they cut them so precisely? How did they lift them to such heights without modern tools? To this day, it's a mystery. But what's fascinating is that no one seems interested in finding out. The official narrative says it doesn't matter. All we need to know is that the pharaoh is dead. The rest is irrelevant. But what if I told you that each pyramid contained advanced technology, devices powered by harnessed earth energy? Would you believe me? What if I showed you evidence of electromagnetics, radio waves, cosmic communication, all encoded into the pyramids? Suddenly, the pyramids become more than just tombs. They become portals, energy hubs, interdimensional gateways, become transmitters and receivers of cosmic knowledge. The evidence is all around us if we open our eyes and minds. Take the Sphinx, for example. The erosion pattern around the paws suggests it was built during a wetter period, possibly 10,000 years ago. This is long before the Egyptians we know of even existed. Yet the Sphinx appears in ancient texts dating back 4,500 years. Was it left over from a forgotten civilization? A remnant of a time before the pharaohs? Could the Sphinx have been a guardian of lost technology, watching over a sacred site for thousands of years? And what's with the alignment of the pyramids? Orion's belt has been visible from the Giza Plateau for 10,000 years, but only for 100 nights a year. The 3 stars aligned with the 3 pyramids pointing towards the eternal flame of the setting sun? Was this mere coincidence? Or did the Egyptians deliberately choose this location to connect with the cosmos? What if the pyramids were not built for the dead, but for the living, as energy hubs or consciousness amplifiers? Imagine the pyramids as tuning forks, resonating with the frequencies of the universe. Their precise geometry and orientation allowed them to transmit and receive cosmic vibrations. They acted as antennas, focusing and amplifying the energy of the cosmos. The Egyptians understood that the Earth was a living organism, and they wanted to tap into its energy. They built the pyramids as energy hubs, places where the veil between the physical and spiritual realms was thinnest. They gathered at the pyramids during solstices and equinoxes, when the Earth's energy was most powerful. They performed rituals and ceremonies, activating the energy of the pyramids. They believed these rituals could heal the sick, grant fertility to the barren, and even raise the dead. The pyramids were not just tombs, they were centers of power, places where the energy of the cosmos flowed freely. They were temples of healing where the sick came to be cured and the dying came to be reborn. It's time to wake up and realize the pyramids are not just ancient relics. They are still active energy hubs, still resonating with the frequencies of the universe. All we have to do is tune in and connect with them. So next time you see a pyramid, take a moment to appreciate its power. It's not just a tomb, it's a portal to the infinite. What do you think? Leave a comment below and let me know. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out more content. Thanks for watching. See you next time. These are just a few of the most prominent gods of ancient Egypt, but there are many more, each with their own stories and roles. So here are 5 more of the most interesting Egyptian gods you should know about. Ankh, the goddess of the sky, was the personification of the heavens. She was the mother of the sun god Ra, and some believe she was the first being created by the primal god Adam. Her name literally means "she who is arched," referring to the shape of the sky above. Enki, the creator god, was the supreme leader of the Egyptian pantheon. He was the father of Ra, the sun god, and the grandfather of the Pharaohs, though not widely worshipped. His legacy lived on in the royal bloodlines of Egypt. King Tutankhamun was even named after him, meaning living image of Ankh. In some myths, Adam created the world by emerging from a primordial ocean. In others, he simply existed before time began. Either way, he represents the ultimate creative force, the source from which all life and gods sprang. Hathor, the great sky goddess, had many forms, from a simple country girl to a fierce warrior. She was associated with music, dance, love, and motherhood, but also with strength and power. As a cow, she provided nourishment and protection. As seen in the famous Hathor and Cows from Edfu, she was a major deity throughout Egypt, often depicted with cow ears or a sun crown. Her cult center was at Dendora, where the goddess Hathor was worshipped long before the Old Kingdom. Thoth, the ibis-headed god, was the divine scribe, recording the deeds of men and keeping time. Was associated with wisdom, magic, and the moon, and was credited with inventing writing and the calendar. Often depicted with a scroll, he was revered as a teacher and guide, helping souls navigate the afterlife. Some believe he was immortal, while others saw him as the son of Ra. His main cult center was at Hermes, where a large temple complex was built in his honor. Sobek, the crocodile god, was a local deity from the Fiume Oasis, where he was worshipped as a powerful creator god. Depicted with a crocodile head and a royal beard, he symbolized strength and fertility. His cult spread to other parts of Egypt, including Nubia, where he was identified with the god Amen. Amen-Sobek was particularly popular during the New Kingdom, and the Temple of Karnak has many fine examples of his worship. Bastet, the cat goddess, was originally a ferocious lion goddess, but later became more gentle, associated with domestic cats in the home. She was worshipped throughout Egypt, and her cult center was at Bubastis. Her image was used on coins, and her temple was a major destination for pilgrims. Bastet represented protection, fertility, and joy, and was often shown in human form with a cat's head. This is just a small fraction of the gods and goddesses of ancient Egypt. There were hundreds of them, and they all played a part in the lives of the Egyptians. They were not just figures of worship, but personifications of the natural world, the cycles of life and death, and the forces of good and evil. To understand Egyptian mythology is to understand a culture that was deeply in tune with the rhythms of nature, the mysteries of the cosmos, and the complexities of the human condition. And so, just as the ancient Egyptians looked to the gods for guidance and understanding, we too can find wisdom and insight in their stories and teachings. Welcome to the channel. Today we're diving deep into Egyptian mythology, one of the most influential and enduring mythologies in history. The pantheon of gods and goddesses are so well known that their images are instantly recognizable, like the majestic Sphinx with its lioness body and human head, or the iconic winged goddess Isis holding the baby Horus. But the pantheon doesn't stop there. There's the lioness goddess Sekhmet, unleashed by Ra to punish humanity, whose rage was so unstoppable she nearly destroyed the world. It's only tricked by being given beer dyed red like blood. Did she calm down a story reminding us of divine wrath and mercy? Her more peaceful counterpart is Bastet, the cat goddess of home, protection, and joy, showing how Egyptian gods often had dual aspects: war and peace, chaos and order, strength and gentleness. Hathor, the cow goddess of motherhood and music, also shares those dual traits, nurturing yet powerful. As we journey through this pantheon, we see a divine mirror of human life, love, revenge, justice, earth, power, and protection. Each god played a role in maintaining the balance of the cosmos, and temples were more than places of worship. They were homes for these gods, built to maintain harmony in both the heavens and on earth. What makes Egyptian mythology so unique is how tightly it's woven into daily life, government, death rituals, and even architecture. From massive temples aligned to the stars, to amulets buried with the dead, to spells inscribed in tombs, every layer of society was infused with divine meaning. These gods weren't distant. They were present in floods, dreams, hieroglyphs, and even the stars. So let's meet some of the key players in this celestial drama. Ra, the supreme sun god, was the creator of all. Ra. He brought light into darkness and order into chaos. His journey across the sky in his solar boat each day was a battle against the forces of darkness, a struggle we could all relate to. For the Egyptians, Ra personified the life-giving force of the sun, a father figure who nurtured and sustained his people. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, another god took center stage: Osiris, the lord of the underworld. He wasn't a fearsome god of retribution, but a benevolent ruler who welcomed souls into the afterlife. The journey through the underworld was a perilous one, filled with challenges that tested the worthiness of the deceased. But Osiris, with his unwavering fairness, judged each soul, ensuring the wicked were held accountable, while the virtuous were granted eternal rest. Then there was Isis, the embodiment of magic and motherhood, who not only nursed the infant Horus, but also resurrected her husband, Osiris, from the dead. She was a beacon of hope, a symbol of love that transcended even death itself. And let's not forget Anubis, the guardian of the scales of justice. When the dead arrived in the underworld, they were weighed against the feather of truth. If they were found wanting, they were led to the fiery abyss by the dreaded jackal-headed god. But if they passed the test, they were welcomed by Anubis into the field of reeds, a paradise of peace and joy. Each of these gods played a crucial role in the grand Egyptian narrative, a narrative that didn't just entertain, but informed every aspect of life. The Egyptians weren't just worshippers. They were active participants in the cosmic order. They built massive temples, not just to honor their gods, but to house them, to make the divine presence tangible in their midst. And when they died, they left offerings and spells not just for the journey to the afterlife, but to ensure a safe return, a return that was not just a matter of faith, but a practical necessity to maintain the balance of the world. In the bustling city of Thebes, where the mighty pharaohs once ruled, there was an intimate connection between the rulers and the divine. The pharaohs were seen as living embodiments of the gods, their lineage stretching back to the very creation of Egypt. They weren't just kings, were mediators between the gods and the people, ensuring that the cosmic order was maintained. Temples weren't just places of worship, they were power centers. The priests, not just religious leaders, were keepers of knowledge, their influence rivaling that of the pharaohs themselves. It was they who deciphered the divine will, who interpreted the omens and performed the rituals that kept the gods appeased. As we continue our exploration of Egyptian mythology, keep in mind that the Egyptians weren't just passive observers of the divine. They engaged with their gods, bargained with them, made offerings, appeased them, and rebelled against them. Theirs was a relationship not of blind faith, but of active participation. A participation that shaped not just their religious practices, but their entire way of life. If you found this journey through the Egyptian pantheon intriguing, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you do and miss upcoming videos exploring other ancient mythologies and lost civilizations. And leave a comment. Which Egyptian god fascinates you most and why? Let's uncover more ancient secrets together. You are looking live inside the Great Pyramid of Giza. What you see before you is the Hall of Records. It's a secret chamber hidden deep within the belly of the ancient monument. Inside, 40 feet up, you find a wall inscribed with hieroglyphics. But these aren't just markings. They are the key to a forgotten truth, written by Imhotep himself. Here it tells the real story of the building of the pyramids, the forbidden knowledge that the pharaohs wanted to keep secret. That is until now. What do? You trust the ancient text? What will you find in there? It could be the key to unlocking some of the deepest mysteries of the pyramids. If you want to know more, follow the instructions provided below. Remember, history doesn't just happen, it happens to you. You are a part of it. Choose wisely. The air grows heavy as you step through the threshold into the unknown. The flickering torchlight dances over weathered hieroglyphics, revealing tales both wondrous and strange. You read of a time when the pharaohs walked among gods, shaping the very destiny of the universe. But there's more. Hidden between these eternal walls lies a prophecy, an enigma that has echoed through millennia. It's the legend of Akhenaten, the Sun King. They say he didn't die, that his spirit soared to the heavens to join the sun. Some whisper he'll return, bringing with him untold wisdom. What does it mean for you? Will you witness his return or become a part of his legacy? But let me tell you, the journey ahead won't be easy. There are forces that would keep this knowledge from you, powers that seek to bury the truth of Akhenaten forever. You must use all your skills to overcome them. Are you ready? Are you brave enough to unravel the secrets of the ancients? Trust the legends and unearth the truth of the Sun King. Or turn away and let the prophecy fade into the shadows. The choice is yours. Step forward into the eternal embrace of the pyramid. Feel the weight of ages pressing upon you as you delve deeper into the heart of the mystery. Your path is fraught with challenges, but the allure of the unknown draws you ever onward. Will you answer the call of the ancients? Uncover the truth of Akhenaten and fulfill the prophecy? Or turn back and leave the secrets of the pyramid undisturbed? Only you can unlock the fate of the Sun King. Welcome back, everyone. Here today we are going to talk about the enigmatic pharaoh Akhenaten and his possible extraterrestrial connections. Akhenaten's reign marked a radical departure from tradition, not just in terms of religion, but also in art, architecture, and diplomacy. His decision to abandon Thebes, the cultural and religious heart of Egypt, for a new capital in Tel El Marna, signals a drastic change in the status quo. This wasn't simply a relocation of power, it was a rejection of the old ways, a cleaving away from the past to establish something wholly new. Such a monumental shift often mirrors experiences of individuals who encounter something transformative, something that compels them to break away from the familiar and forge a different path. Think of it as your classic "I quit my job and traveled the world" moment, except instead of a personal journey, we're talking about an entire kingdom. So what could have caused such a dramatic upheaval? In Akhenaten's case, it was his supposed vision of Aten, the sun disk. This wasn't the traditional Egyptian sun god. Sure, Aten was associated with the sun, but unlike the Egyptian deities, it had no physical form. It was just a radiant disk in the sky. This intangible concept demanded a new kind of worship, a worship that could not coexist with the existing religious framework. The old gods had to go. Akhenaten wasn't content with simply adding Aten to the pantheon. He wanted it to be the one and only deity. This transition is akin to having a favorite band. Initially, you enjoy their music alongside many others. But then their sound evolves, becomes your everything. You start seeing them in a different light. Their music takes on a deeper meaning, and eventually you realize you're re-listening to something that resonates on a whole different level. It's like nothing else. And in that realization, you drop everything else and dive headfirst into their music. Suddenly, everything else seems dull by comparison. That's the kind of devotion Akhenaten had for Aten. But his wasn't a typical case of religious fervor. His transformation was sudden and absolute. The abandonment of Thebes, the violent restructuring of the priesthood, the construction of a new capital, all happened with astonishing speed. It was as if Akhenaten was on a tight deadline, compelled by an urgency that transcended normal human understanding, as if the gods themselves were pushing him along. He acted with an intensity that suggested a dire need to make things right, to rectify some cosmic imbalance. This sense of urgency echoes the experience of someone who's received a message from a higher plane of existence. Think of prophets, those individuals who suddenly find themselves compelled to spread a message they didn't choose, but feel compelled to deliver anyway. They don't decide to become prophets. It happens to them. And in that moment, they're driven by an overwhelming need to share what they've seen, heard, or felt. It's a calling they cannot ignore. Something similar might have happened to Akhenaten. It wasn't just a change of heart or a sudden insight. It was a shift triggered by something outside the realm of conventional experience, something that jolted him into action and set him on a mission to reshape not just Egypt, but the very definition of godliness. Now imagine being thrust into the spotlight. One day you're an average Joe, and the next people are staring at you, trying to figure you out. People are staring at you, trying to figure you out. People suddenly start asking you questions about the visions you just described, about the new God you're championing. The pressure mounts. Everyone wants to know what you're about, what's driving this mad dash towards a new reality. Suddenly, your life isn't your own anymore. Every move you make, every word you utter is under scrutiny. Even worse, there are those who don't just ask questions. They try to control you, to bend you to their will. It's a terrifying prospect, a loss of identity, of self, of autonomy. And yet this is what Akhenaten might have experienced. His transformation was so radical, so disruptive, that it shook the very foundations of Egyptian society. It wasn't just a shift in his personal beliefs, it was a public spectacle. A collision between the old world and the new that he championed. Imagine the societal fallout, the religious upheaval, the power struggles. Amidst this maelstrom, Akhenaten's sanity and motivations come under attack. It was a calculated move to discredit him, to paint him as mentally unstable, a heretic, an outsider. Accusations fly, doubts are cast, and soon his very essence is questioned. Was he always this way? Did something snap? Did something change him fundamentally? History remembers him as eccentric, his features oddly alien-like, his beliefs bizarrely singular. But behind the veil of these labels lurks a man fighting to maintain his grip on reality amidst a storm he never asked for. But there is another layer to this puzzle. Many historians agree that Akhenaten's wife, Nefertiti, played a pivotal role in his reign. She was not just a queen, she was a partner in the grand scheme of things. Yet her story is shrouded in mystery, cut short when she abruptly disappears from the historical record after a decade in the spotlight. Her vanishing act only deepens the intrigue surrounding Akhenaten, painting a picture of a power couple united in their vision. But what was the true extent of Nefertiti's influence? How did she shape Akhenaten's journey in Egypt's destiny? What if her role was not merely that of a supportive partner, but of a guiding force, a catalyst for the radical changes that defined their era? As you descend deeper into the heart of the pyramid, the air grows thick with anticipation. The final chamber comes into view, guarded by ancient seals. What secrets await behind them? Can you decipher the cryptic messages left by Akhenaten and Nefertiti? What will you discover? About their legacy? Are you prepared to uncover the hidden truths of their reign? Before we go, hit that subscribe button to stay connected to the timeless mysteries of history. Each click brings you closer to the untold stories that have shaped our world. With every click, you activate the magic. Stay tuned for more fascinating tales. They say history is written by the victors, but sometimes it's erased by the fearful. What if one of the most powerful civilizations on Earth tried to wipe a king from existence, not because of war or betrayal, but because he was too strange, too different, and maybe even too dangerous to remember? This is the story of Akhenaten, a pharaoh who broke all the rules. He looked nothing like a man, ruled like no other king, worshipped a god no one else did, and lived in a city that vanished after his death. From his alien-like appearance to his bizarre beliefs, everything about Akhenaten challenges what we think we know about ancient Egypt. And the weirdest part, the deeper you dig, the less human he seems. Before we begin, let me clarify one thing. We don't actually know what Akhenaten looked like. Everything we see of him comes down to sculpture, stone relief, and pottery created by craftsmen under his direct supervision. His image was propaganda. He wanted to be seen a certain way, and he made sure everyone knew exactly how he wanted to look. So when we talk about Akhenaten's strange appearance, remember it's deliberate, symbolic. The question is, what did it symbolize? Akhenaten came to power around 1353 BC, during what historians call the New Kingdom. Ancient Egypt had already reached its zenith. Its borders stretched from northern Syria to the southern Sudan. Its wealth was unparalleled. Its culture flourished. Its kings were considered divine. For hundreds of years, the pharaohs were not rulers. They were gods on earth, embodying the divine order. That is, until Akhenaten. His statues and carvings were nothing like the heroic, muscle-bound images of other pharaohs. Instead, he was shown with a long, narrow face, sunken cheeks, drooping lips, spindly limbs, a rounded belly, wide hips, and even a soft, almost feminine chest. It was as if the sculptors were depicting a person outside the boundaries of gender, neither fully male nor female. This sparked endless debate. Some scholars argue it was symbolism. Akhenaten wanted to embody both masculine and feminine energies, reflecting the idea of a universal creator. Others believe it wasn't symbolism at all. He actually looked that way. His famously elongated skull has led to medical theories like Marfan syndrome or Klinefelter syndrome. But those don't explain everything. In fact, some people believe Akhenaten wasn't human at all in the traditional sense. His appearance has fueled theories that he may have been a hybrid, part human, part something else. But Akhenaten wasn't just an alien-looking ruler. He was an alien king. When he took the throne, Egypt was a polytheistic society. Its people believed in a pantheon of gods, each with their own domain and personality. Ra, the sun god, was obviously important. But other gods like Osiris, Anubis, and Thoth also had massive followings. Akhenaten changed all that. He declared that Aten, a minor sun god, was the only god worth following. And while the rest of Egypt worshipped a pantheon of gods, Akhenaten had a personal relationship with Aten. Every morning, so the story goes, he would rise before dawn, stand on a balcony, and greet the sunrise as if meeting an old friend. He said Aten chose him to be its servant and gave him a simple message for humanity: love and light. Obviously, this is a vast oversimplification of what Akhenaten preached. But it captures his main idea. There was one true God, and all other religions were wrong. To spread this message, he constructed a new temple complex dedicated to Aten, which became the center of his religious reforms. But he didn't stop there. Closed temples to other gods, silenced priests, and outlawed the worship of Egypt's other gods. He even erased their names from monuments and tombs. Akhenaten was uncontent to shift religion. He wanted to burn the old world down and build a new one from scratch. To complete this transformation, he abandoned the religious capital of Thebes and built an entirely new city in the middle of the desert. He called it Akatant. Today we know it as Amarna. Again, this is a huge simplification of a monumental project. The city wasn't built in a day. It had multiple phases of construction. And its purpose wasn't just religious, but political, economic, and social as well. But Amarna was clearly special. It was not like any other city in Egypt or anywhere else. Its layout, artwork, and inscriptions were unlike anything else from that era. There were no images of gods or goddesses, just Akhenaten, his queen Nefertiti, and the glowing sun disk above them. The artwork wasn't just revolutionary in style, but purpose. Each carving, relief, and painting glorified Aten and the pharaoh. It was propaganda on a monumental scale. Remember, Akhenaten controlled every image of himself, showing him as weak and effeminate. And now, he was showing himself as a god among men, the one chosen by Aten to spread its word. And not just a king, but a god of peace. Forget war, Forget conquest. Under Akhenaten, Egypt did not expand. It contracted. He stopped building new temples, stopped raising armies, and spent his resources on art, architecture, and administration. In short, he turned Egypt into a theocracy, ruled directly by a god or someone who claimed to be a god. So why would anyone want to erase such a figure from history? Let's zoom out a little. Akhenaten ruled for 17 years. After that, he died or disappeared, though we don't know for sure. His tomb, if it was ever completed, is a mystery. His body was never definitively found, and his legacy, that was destroyed. The priests of Amen returned to power and began a systematic erasure of Akhenaten's name and memory. His temples were torn down, his images defaced. Even his son, the famous Tutankhamun, rejected his father's religion and returned Egypt to its old ways. It's as if the country agreed that Akhenaten had to be forgotten. But why? If he was merely misguided, why such intense fear? Why the need to bury him not just in body but in memory? Well, the answer, as with so many historical mysteries, is lost to time, but we can make some educated guesses. First of all, let's consider the scope of Akhenaten's changes. He didn't just tinker with religion or policy, he fundamentally changed how Egypt worked, looked, and thought. He took a polytheistic empire and forced it into monotheism. He moved his capital and reorganized his government. He patronized a new style of art and encouraged a new way of thinking. Now, you can argue that these changes were gradual, that he didn't impose his religion on others, or that he left behind a cultural legacy. But let's be realistic. No pharaoh had ever done anything like this before. The closest comparison is probably Moses, who led the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt and into the Promised Land, where he established a theocracy based on Yahweh alone. Coincidentally, Akhenaten's god, Aten, is often compared to Yahweh, and there's evidence that Moses may have studied Egyptian religion. Could Akhenaten have been Egypt's Moses, leading his people into monotheism? And if so, why was he erased? The obvious answer is that Akhenaten went too far. He alienated the priests and nobility who lost power and influence. He neglected the military and put Egypt in danger. He abandoned its cultural traditions and alienated foreign allies. But what if that's only part of the story? What if the real reason Akhenaten was erased wasn't fear of his politics, but his appearance? Look at it this way. Whether Akhenaten was born with an elongated skull or grew it artificially, it challenged the basic tenets of Egyptian civilization. Remember, Egyptians believed their pharaohs were divine, so they were gods on earth, linked to the divine order of the universe. If Akhenaten was not fully human, that divine order was broken. Egyptians understood kingship as a sacred duty passed down through bloodlines. If Akhenaten was not truly Egyptian, then his claim to the throne was illegitimate. In short, if he was not one of them, he could not be their leader. This is why so much of Akhenaten's artwork shows him with both himself and Nefertiti as king and queen. His legitimacy came not from bloodlines, but from Aten alone. Some may dismiss this idea as nonsense, but remember, this was a time when people believed the world was flat. The sun and stars were gods, and a king's wife could be his sister. The Egyptians were open to the supernatural. And if Akhenaten presented himself as a god among men, then his appearance as a man among gods would not be unthinkable. In fact, it fits neatly with their religious beliefs. If that's true, then the final question becomes, why did he present himself that way? What purpose did his strange appearance serve? We simply don't know. But it's worth speculating that Akhenaten's appearance wasn't just symbolic, but literal. Maybe he was part human, part something else, and his mission was not just to reform religion, but humanity. Maybe he was not a prophet, but a messenger, sent to deliver a message he didn't understand. Or maybe the message was not divine revelation, but scientific knowledge. Some have even suggested that Akhenaten was an alien visitor, and his appearance and beliefs were simply a product of advanced understanding. The truth is, we will never know. Akhenaten is a mystery by design. He wanted to be remembered not as a man, but as a god, and his followers succeeded. Even in death, he became a legend. So the real question is, what does that tell us about the past? What do forgotten pharaohs and erased cities reveal about our understanding of history? And how can we ensure that our own stories do not end up buried? Because in this old world, the truth is timeless. But our perception of it is always changing, and maybe that's why we keep returning to these forgotten tales. It's not just about the past, it's about us. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share. Subscribe to Old World for more stories that question what we've been told. Check out our other videos for more stories that challenge conventional history. And join us on a platform for exclusive content and early access to new episodes. Thanks for watching. See you next time. The ancient Egyptians did not fear death the way we do. To them, death was not the end. It was merely a transition, a passage into a world more eternal, more real, and infinitely more dangerous than life itself. The Book of the Dead, a mysterious text used by ancient Egyptians during the afterlife. This sacred manual for the soul's journey is full of spells, rituals, and instructions from the gods. It provides guidance on how to pass through the dangers of the underworld and reach the field of reeds. Their version of paradise will look at the purpose of the Book of the Dead, the different spells within it, and how it changed over time. Join me on this journey through one of history's most fascinating topics. Let's get started. The Book of the Dead. Before we dive into the spells of the Book of the Dead, let's take a step back and look at the context surrounding this enigmatic text. The ancient Egyptians believed that when a person died, their soul began a perilous journey through the underworld. The goal of this journey was to reach the field of reeds, a place of peace and happiness where the soul could be reunited with the body. However, the path to the field of reeds was fraught with danger, and the dead had to face many challenges along the way. The Book of the Dead was created to help the dead navigate this journey. It's important to note that the ancient Egyptians didn't view death as the end, but rather as a transition into another realm of existence. They believed that the soul would continue on, and that it needed guidance to do so correctly. To better understand the significance of the Book of the Dead, let's consider the Egyptian beliefs about the afterlife. The Egyptians believed that when a person died, their soul would leave the body and travel through the underworld. The underworld was not a pleasant place, and the soul had to face many obstacles along the way. These obstacles were designed to test the soul's worthiness to enter the field of reeds. If the soul passed these tests, it would be rewarded with eternal peace and happiness in the field of reeds. However, if the soul failed these tests, it would be banished from the underworld and condemned to wander the earth as a ghost. This belief system was a significant part of Egyptian culture, and the Book of the Dead was created to help the dead navigate this journey. The book was filled with spells, rituals, and instructions from the gods that were meant to help the dead overcome the obstacles they would face in the underworld. Now that we've covered the background of the Book of the Dead, let's delve into the spells within it. The spells in the Book of the Dead were not only written in beautiful hieroglyphics, but they were also incredibly powerful. Each spell was carefully chosen to help the dead on their journey through the underworld. One of the most famous spells in the Book of the Dead is the weighing of the heart ceremony. This ceremony took place after the soul had passed through the various stages of the underworld and arrived at the Hall of Truth. In this hall, the soul was weighed on a scale to determine its worthiness to enter the field of reeds. The heart of the deceased was placed on one side of the scale, and the feather of the goddess Mat, who represented truth and justice, was placed on the other side. If the heart was found to be lighter than the feather, it meant that the person had lived a good life, and their soul would be allowed to pass on to the field of reeds. However, if the heart was found to be heavier than the feather, it meant that the person had not lived a good life, and their soul would be condemned to wander the underworld forever. This ceremony was a crucial part of the Egyptian belief system, and the Book of the Dead contained all the necessary instructions for it to be carried out correctly. Another famous spell from the Book of the Dead is the negative confession. This spell was spoken by the dead as they approached the Hall of Truth, and it was a way for them to confess their sins and ask for forgiveness. In this spell, the dead would list all the evil things they had not done during their lifetime, and would ask the gods to forgive them if they had committed any sins that they were not aware of. This was an important part of the Egyptian burial ceremony, and the Book of the Dead provided the framework for the negative confession. In addition to these famous spells, the Book of the Dead contained many others that were equally important. For example, there were spells that helped the dead navigate the various obstacles they would face in the underworld, such as rivers of fire and poisonous snakes. There were also spells that helped the dead protect themselves from evil spirits and demons that might try to harm them on their journey. Each spell was carefully crafted to address a specific need, and together, they formed a powerful toolkit for the dead to use on their journey through the underworld. As we continue our journey through the Book of the Dead, it's important to note that it wasn't just a collection of spells and rituals. It was also a source of comfort and hope for the Egyptians. The Egyptians believed that the afterlife was a place of peace and happiness, and the Book of the Dead provided guidance on how to get there. It gave them a sense of control over their destiny and allowed them to face death with courage. The spells and rituals in the Book of the Dead were not only meant to help the dead navigate the underworld, but also to bring them closer to the gods. By reciting these spells, the Egyptians believed that they were connecting with the divine and receiving their blessings. This connection with the divine was an important part of Egyptian culture, and the Book of the Dead played a vital role in maintaining that connection even after death. One of the most fascinating aspects of the Book of the Dead is that it evolved over time. As Egyptian culture changed, so did the Book of the Dead. In the earliest versions of the book, the spells were mostly concerned with helping the dead navigate the underworld and avoid being punished. However, as time went on, the spells became more complex and began to include elements of Egyptian mythology and religion. For example, later versions of the Book of the Dead included spells that invoked the help of specific gods and goddesses to protect the dead on their journey. This evolution reflects the changing religious beliefs of the Egyptians and shows how the Book of the Dead adapted to meet the needs of a growing and changing culture. The Book of the Dead is a fascinating and complex topic that has captured the imaginations of people for centuries. From the weighing of the heart ceremony to the negative confession, each spell and ritual offers a glimpse into the rich tapestry of Egyptian culture and belief systems. As we continue to explore the mysteries of the afterlife, the lessons from the Book of the Dead remain relevant, reminding us of the importance of living a life of truth, justice, and courage. Whether you're a scholar seeking to understand ancient civilizations or simply someone fascinated by the mysteries of the afterlife, the Book of the Dead has something to offer. So keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep searching for answers in the pages of this ancient text. If you enjoyed this exploration of the Book of the Dead, I invite you to hit the like button and share it with others who might be interested in this topic. You can also subscribe to the channel to stay updated on future videos. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the Book of the Dead. Until next time, may your own journey through life be filled with wisdom, courage, and a thirst for knowledge.